Okay, let's get this session started. I call the special council meeting to order for Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. Mayor Price was not able to join us today. He might be zooming in as we proceed.
Oh my God.
Is that what I sound like? Wow, scary. Mayor Price may be joining us on the Zoom later, but he was not able to attend in person today. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the special council meeting of Wednesday, October 15th, 2025? Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham, all in favor? Approved. Today's meeting is the first in our 5-year financial plan, 2026 through to 2030. It's budget sessions. I'll turn the meeting over to Charlotte Osborne and Charlene Courtney to work through the agenda items. Charlotte, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. As my first responsibility, welcome everyone. I will hand things over to CAO Fercho.
I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So as council knows, we've revamped the budget process. We did the first run through last year of the new budget process. So the idea being to condense it, to keep it more at a policy level for council, and also to make decisions on capital prior to the year end for all the capital budget that we possibly can in order to get into procurement and best pricing early in the year. So this is our first meeting of the budget process for this year. So what today is about is to give council a global view of our capital projects. So you're going to see all the capital projects in all the years ahead in the next 5 years. You're going to see the impact of those capital projects on our financial reserves. And you're going to see a preview of how all of that looks together. And the concept being, once you have that sort of global view, you're going to get a preview of the projects. There's some that are a little more technical that have quite a bit of information that even when we get to the later meetings when we try to pitch the projects, there's more information required than that day will handle. So there's a committee of the whole meeting coming between now and the November meeting on capital for those larger explanations. So today is about giving you a big picture view. And then in November, on the 19th of November, that's where council will hear staff talk about each capital project. And rather than having a big delay between when you hear about the projects and then the approval or denial of the projects, at that meeting, like we did last year, council by department, you'll hear about the 2026 capital projects and any project attached to it in detail by department. And then at the end of each department's presentation, council then goes through the capital projects that are fresh in your mind. Council can either approve them, deny them, or defer them for further discussion in the new year. The idea being whatever we can get approved prior to the end of the year gives us the best chance to get out for early bids and the best prices and the best bang for the buck for the taxpayer on all our projects. So that's the process in front of you in a bigger picture scale. So I'm going to put it back over to Charlotte to introduce the budget for today. But as I said, the capital projects, even the 2026, they're just going to come at you at a summary level for today. But the detail is coming in November, closer to when you're going to approve or deny.
Thank you, CAO Fercho. So my speaking notes reiterate what CAO Fercho has just said and perhaps provide a little bit additional detail. So we're going to begin with a review of the reserves. This is in your section 7.1, pages 5 through 35. Charlene will be delivering the presentation. So while this information is first draft and will change as we move through the budget process, these changes are not expected to have a material impact on the overall outlook for the reserves. So some of the details will change, but the discussion Charlene is going to lead you through at a higher level will remain applicable. So borrowing is also another important source of funding for the capital plan. We will be bringing back borrowing at a later meeting. We have some large projects that are just sort of coming together and that have required that we just hold off on the borrowing. Typically, we would present borrowing and reserves together. And before I turn it over, well, I'll finish my comments, but I just wanted to also highlight that the pages I just handed out to you, I see they're not numbered. It is to replace pages 73 through 75. Okay. After the reserve presentation, we will shift to projects. Most of the projects in the 5-year financial plan will be touched on. There are a few exceptions. The focus will be on 2026 projects and any 2027 companion projects. Projects planned for 2028 through 2029 will receive a brief mention. And most of the 2030 projects will be new to council, and they will receive a mention in the form of a brief introduction. Today is about making sure that you are familiar with the projects planned for 26 and aware of the projects on the horizon for 27 through 2030. Staff will describe the projects briefly and answer any of your questions. If there's a project, a section we're not going to go over, it does not mean that you can't ask a question about projects listed there. And primarily it relates to to our mobile equipment. All our mobile equipment replacements follow our fleet replacement plan, and where there are new pieces of equipment that are not a replacement, the staff might provide you with a bit of an overview on that. But it does not mean that you can't ask questions if you see the project listed. So also carry forward projects. Project listings have been provided in your package by department. This is section 7.2, and they span pages 85 through 103. For each department, the lists are broken out by projects in progress, not started, and projects eliminated. The reason for removal is typically that the projects are no longer required. In the case of all the projects, including the projects in progress, the amounts that you see in the schedules are the 2025 budget values, not the amount left to spend. At this stage in the game, that number is still a bit of a moving target, so the number you see is the budget that was in 2025. These lists are provided for information only. The projects were previously approved and are not scheduled to be discussed. Again, this doesn't mean if you have a question, you can't ask it. Please feel free to do that. But the intent of today is not to discuss those carry forward projects. Just back to my note about mobile and other equipment. So units will not be individually reviewed. They are replaced under the fleet replacement plan managed out of Public Works. Also, projects under 20,000 are for the most part not intended to be reviewed. If a department feels it's important to highlight it, they are free to do so, and you are, of course, free to ask questions. As CAO Fercho referenced the Committee of the Whole scheduled for October 27th, one of the big items on there will be a presentation by Director Hitu. He will be presenting 2025 facility assets review presentation. The work anticipated under that initiative will have a significant impact on how we manage our facility assets and will necessitate a review of budget planning around those assets once we're further into that project. So stay tuned for some exciting information from Director Hitu on October 27th. Next month, we will meet again on November 19th. Staff will provide short department presentations reviewing their 2026 operating budgets and 2026 work plan. The 2026 and 2027 projects and companion projects will be presented. The larger projects will be, the capital projects and special projects and in some cases major repairs will be presented to Council for yes, no, or defer decisions. Projects where the decision is deferred will be brought forward again either in December or in January for a final consideration. So this is exactly what we did last year. Each department will review their 2026 projects and any 2027 companion projects. We will be seeking a approval or no or defer decision from Council on each of those projects. And at the end of that department's presentation, there will be a resolution to be voted on, and we will capture Council's decision in that resolution. So it's a very important meeting on the 19th. And so between today and what will be presented at the Committee of the Whole on the 27th, please ask ask all your questions. Feel free also to ask questions on the 19th, of course. But the intent is, as CAO Furcho said, that by the time at the end of the November 19th meeting, we have a pretty good head start on our capital plan for 2026. I'm not sure how many of you might have seen the original budget schedule, but today was anticipated to run somewhere between 12 to ending at 7. We will not be ending at 7. 4:30 is, depending on the level of discussion we have, we'll be out of here in plenty of time. We are going to have a couple of breaks. One of them, there will be some food available, I think around 3 o'clock, I believe it is. And then we can decide whether or not we take a break or keep working through. A break might be nice. We do have plenty of time. And we'll just see where we're at that time. So without further ado, I'll just maybe check with CAO Furcho. Do you have anything you'd like to add? No. Okay. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Charlene.
Thank you, Charlotte. So, Richard, will this go up on the screen there? I'm just going to give a very high-level overview and a refresher of the reserves. And I just have to figure out how to work this. Okay. So as you know, we have a reserves and surplus policy number 40-50. This policy is to articulate council and administration's commitment to financial sustainability and to ensure that the city has adequate reserve surpluses levels to be flexible with opportunities when they present, act innovatively, I can't say that word, and mitigate risks while supporting the city's asset management program. This policy also demonstrates to the community that council recognizes that having adequate reserves surplus levels is important to achieving community goals, including financial health and stability. To back up the policy and to put more teeth into it, we have the Reserve Funds Establishment Bylaw 4024. So under Section 188 of the Community Charter, it's authorized council to establish reserve funds for specific purposes and direct that money to be placed to the credit of those reserve funds. Section 189 of the Community Charter states that money in a reserve fund and interest earned on it must only be used for the purpose for which that fund was established. Bylaw 4024 establishes separate reserve funds under one bylaw and outlines the purpose of each reserve fund. Section 4 of that bylaw, source of funds, indicates when funds received must be placed into a specific reserve fund. For example, money received for the sale of land must be placed into land sales reserves, and money received from timber sales shall be placed in the fire mitigation reserve fund. Other sources of funds are funds appropriated from capital or operating budgets or from general revenue as authorized by the city's annual budget, and cash contributions from other level of governments, such as the Community Works Gas Tax Grant. Section of the bylaw transfer funds. Are you laughing at me?
No.
Okay. That's okay. Transfer funds allows monies held in a capital reserve fund that is greater than required for the purpose for which the fund was established to be transferred to another capital reserve fund in accordance with Section 189 of the Community Charter. So this year, we had a suggestion that it would be awesome if we could highlight in green, yellow, or red which reserves. So green is healthy, amber is we have concerns, and red is it definitely needs some future funding. So I'm just going to go through just really briefly each one of these reserves. So, and I might skip over some reserves that are mandatory, like the park, what's that reserve called? Yeah, the park dedicated reserve. So we have the Capital Works Reserve, and that the category for that is risk mitigation and planned capital spending. And the purpose of that is to fund capital and replacement projects, including roads, traffic signals, curb and gutter, sidewalks and street lights, linear assets and roads, bridges, as well as other assets as needed. The source of funding is generally our general road dedicated tax. And the minimum level is a fully funded road capital program based on the existing capital plan, so based on the 5-year plan. And then the optimal level is fully funded infrastructure replacement program, which would be the whole asset management plan. That would be the optimate level. So right now, we're saying that is healthy based on the information that we have right now. And then I have the balance of 1.9 million for 2026 and for 2030, a balance of 1.9 million. So it's staying pretty steady. Next, we have the community works gas tax reserve, which again is healthy. And that is, sorry.
Something. I just want to, so Charlene's point about what we know. So it's based on what's in the 5-year financial plan. What this doesn't anticipate is surges coming beyond the 5-year financial plan. And we have had discussions about a 10-year plan, and we are working on that in the background. The other thing it doesn't do is it doesn't deal with any emergencies that might come up in the 5-year financial plan. So this is, as Charlene said, it's based on the information we have. So the information in the 5-year financial plan suggests that this reserve is meeting its objectives and is addressing at least the minimum level. So just, those are just some additional comments.
Thanks.
Councillor?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you very much for the color coding. I think that's great. Just looking at the Capital Works Reserve, the numbers for the optimum level are pretty big, and they're bigger than what we currently have. So I'm wondering, is that really green, or should that perhaps be amber?
So just to clarify, those numbers are actually what we are spending out of that reserves on the road in the road program. So the reserve itself, so we put, as you will see further on, we put all the road tax into that reserve, and then we pull it out to fund the road program, and any carry forwards gets left into that reserve. So what you're seeing 2026 is just the ending balance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if we have like a $5 million road program, $5 million road program, that we need a $5 million ending balance. We need to have the money go in and then go back out. So that's what's going on there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And Councillor Stetsky?
Yeah, thank you. So a bit of history here. Did the previous council set minimums for each of these with numbers or not? And I mean, I absolutely trust your judgment, but is the red based on the concerns that you have in general, or is it based on not meeting some previous number that council set?
So the red is actually based on the concerns that we have with the level of the balance of it right now. So with the information that we know right now. So as we move on towards the red, you can see that like one of the reserves in red is the sewer capital reserve, and it has an ending balance of $123,000. So that's a concern, and we know that there's future projects coming out of it, and we're not funding it adequately. So.
Thank you, Charlene. And the other issue is, for example, in water and sewer, we've heard from engineering quite a few years ago that the target was $1 million of annual funding into that reserve. And both of those reserves work the same way that Charlene has described. This capital reserve is it's money in, spend, and then there's not a lot left over at the end. The $1 million was pre-COVID. A few years ago, it was, we've started talking about the real number now is $2 million. We're still, I think this year in 2026 is the year we're targeted to hit $1 million because we increased it from 500,000 to $1 million over 5 years, and that 5 years is up at the end of 2026. So while we've achieved $1 million, now we really need $2 million. So that's a discussion for, maybe later on. We've got a lot of things going on in those utility reserves that, we're not going to deal with robustly here today, but it is discussions that we will be having with council. So as Charlene is saying, you know, the $100,000 left over in the reserve is not a good buffer. And we know projects have been moved out because they couldn't be funded in the 5-year financial plan. And should, you know, do they belong moved out? We're not entirely sure. Need more, we need some more work done on some of that. In terms of who set the minimums, so the previous council, I think it wasn't it this council that brought in the policy?
2021 is when.
20, okay, so I think that was the previous previous council. So those were at staff recommendations, that those, and you'll see that they're not hard numbers usually. It's fund the 5-year financial plan,
Fund the capital,
fund the capital plan.
the asset plan. So the asset plan is a moving target. So we can't have a solid number in there. Yeah.
And the other thing we're seeing as our information is getting more robust and we have more work supporting our asset management plan, what happens frequently as we go into the budget season is all of a sudden there are significant projects in the 5-year plan that weren't there before. And so those, you know, that's a risk that we anticipated, or that's an outcome we anticipated when we really started chewing on this asset management work and really delving into it. So it's you know, it's a bit of it's something we're navigating, and I think we're doing a great job navigating it. The first step is to have the information, and we're getting the information. And now we're working on, okay, what is the long-term financial plan to deal with these assets that haven't been dealt with appropriately for many, many years, and that there's been nothing set aside to deal with. Councillor Stetsky, did that answer your questions? Thank you.
Okay, so next we have the Community Works Gas Tax Reserve, which is funded from the Community Works Gas Tax. And it can only be spent on certain things that is allowed by the gas tax agreement. So it's basically we use it for funds to be used to build and revitalize public infrastructure that supports national objectives and productivity and economic growth, a clean environment, and strong cities and communities. Fund utilizes for ongoing enhancements and betterments to the community and council strategic capital projects. And we're saying that balance right now is healthy. We do try to not save up that fund. We do try to spend it as we receive it, but we do have a larger project, I think, in 2031 that balance will be spent on. The Downtown Parking Reserve Fund we're saying that's healthy. And that's funded from the downtown parking revenue, the net downtown parking revenue. And we use that on downtown revitalization and parking land acquisitions, paving, construction, line painting, etc. Next is the Facilities Reserve. So that one is amber. We have concerns. We're showing a balance of $1,024,000 in 2030, but we have actually pushed quite a few projects into 2031 and on, because I believe that we just need to do more work on the facilities and to get an idea of where we're going and what we need to do there. So that is funded from tax annual contributions, and we use that for major repairs, upgrades, replacement, and expansions of municipal buildings and structures and site services. Yes.
So this reserve is the reserve that will be affected by the information Tony is going to be bringing forward. So many of those projects that were pushed out, until we have better information, which Tony will speak to you about on October 27th, you know, the plan is to address the most critical projects in the in the next 1 to 2 years. And then as Tony works through his program, get a better handle on exactly what it is we need to do. So the reserve is definitely a reserve that's going to need some attention.
Okay, next we have the Financial Stabilization Reserve, which is in the red. This reserve is to be used for risk mitigation and opportunity. The balance is low, so it actually does not provide us much opportunity there. So the optimal level is 1.8, and the minimum level is 900,000, and we're at 514,000 to 586 in 2030. And it is a reserve that we were using surpluses to waterfall into this reserve. We haven't had a lot of surpluses over the last couple of years, so this reserve has been underfunded. This reserve was also, we did put the COVID monies into it, and COVID monies are now all gone. And so that's one of the reserves that we need to look at funding better. Fire mitigation reserve is in the green, and that reserve is largely funded from any timber sales that we receive from ongoing fire mitigation and the sale of timber. And so we don't say that we need to carry a balance in that, so that's why that's in the green. Fleet and heavy equipment reserve. So this reserve is what we use to fund and purchase replacement of city fleet and heavy equipment, and it does include water and sewer, solid waste, fleet, and heavy equipment. So basically, this one is in the yellow. We're saying it's underfunded because we know, again, this is one of the reserves that we had to push out some of the planned fleet and heavy equipment into 2031 in order to not have a negative balance. And again, that's another reserve that we'll need to look at funding more adequately. So Charlotte, did you have any?
Thank you, Charlene. Just for, this is another one that we're working with Director Hitu on. So recently, Tony completed an update to the fleet management plan, and we've started work with Director Hitu to assess the funding into that reserve, what's coming out of that reserve, and it's an actually really good asset class to address in terms of looking out over 20 years, where are the surges, where, it's a clean asset class to deal with from that perspective. And so we're starting that work now, and we'll, provide probably some fine-tuned information to council. I'm not sure if we'll get there this year, but as soon as possible, because it is something we're very keen to get going on, because it is definitely a bit of a low-hanging fruit in terms of understanding whether just exactly what needs to go into that reserve and how are we handling all of that. So
Thank you. Councilor Bissett has a question.
Thank you. I was also thinking is probably a reserve where the decisions of council on, say, recycling, whether we need a new recycling truck, or that is done out of, in-house or out of house, that has a major impact on this reserve. Those kind of decisions. So that's something for us to keep in mind as and all councils to keep in mind as they move forward, because some assumptions on there on what major equipment and that could have a big impact on that.
Thank you, Councillor Blissett. Exactly. And this is some of that, more granular work that we need to look at, because the reserve as it runs along is intended for replacement. So if you're introducing a new service, then we need to have a discussion about how is that new service funded? How is that new truck funded? Because the calculations that are being done, the base calculations done on that reserve assume replacement of existing assets. In the past, we have certainly funded new assets from that reserve, but we also have not had a finite or a solid, that's not the right word, have not had a granular understanding of whether or not the funding going in there is actually enough in the long run. So the first step will be to determine, is there enough to replace, what's the funding level to replace what we own? And then every time a new asset is added, that calculation is updated. So that's an excellent point.
So the next reserve is equipment and furniture reserve. So this reserve we were using largely to fund the fire equipment, replacement of like water, hoses and such, for fire. But it's evolved over the years to fund park equipment. And that's why it's in the red, because we're not funding it adequately to fund all the planned park equipment replacements. So basically, and this again is funded from tax. Any comments on that one?
Councillor Brissette again?
Thank you. So then on park equipment, isn't there another source of funding from those park reserves, from what has been,
There is not. So
no, there's nothing else?
no, there is not. So we have the, what is that park reserve called? We have the park, reserve, park land acquisition reserve, and
Okay.
that can only be used to acquire park land. It cannot be used for equipment.
So something
And
like
that's a
the,
mandatory reserve that's set
Okay.
out in
Sure.
the community charter,
Community
so we
charter.
don't have
Yeah.
any, yeah.
but what about the Moyer Park Reserve? Couldn't that be used for park equipment?
The Moyer Park Reserve is intended to repurpose the land, that is the Moyer gravel pit. So no, it's not, and at some point, we need to come back to council and have a discussion about the funds sitting in that reserve. But as it sits right now, those reserves are to repurpose that land and reclaim, thank you, sorry, reclaim the land, yeah.
Councillor Steske?
Yeah, just a quick question, because it says under the optimum column, it says 150,000, and yet there's 192, and yet it's red.
Yeah, by 2030, there's 127,000. But again, this is another one of those reserves that we know moving into 2031, 2032, there's a lot of planned expenditures that it cannot fund at the level that we're funding that reserve right now.
Thank you, Councillor Steske, and I'll maybe just have a little discussion with Charlene right here at the table. So to part of the, when this when this policy was established, as Charlene was saying earlier, most of what was being funded out of there was fire equipment. And it's now evolved because we've been replacing park equipment, playground equipment. So now perhaps that minimum and optimum is no longer appropriate because the reserve has evolved. The use of the reserve has evolved within the allowable parameters. So that would, I don't know if that's
True.
correct, Charlene. Okay.
That's correct, yes. So next is the Information Technology Reserve, which is in the green, and like it says, that is used to fund information technology equipment. And that's funded by annual contributions from tax. The Land Sales Reserve, so that's a reserve that we have set up. It should also, originally when we set up the policy, this reserve was also to be used for capital lending. So if we had projects, a capital project and another reserve that we didn't have enough funds for, we can lend from this reserve. This reserve is sitting at 2.3, growing to 2.5, and it's basically just earning interest right now. We're not we didn't plan to put any funds into it. Yeah, this is the peak mortgage reserve that the peak mortgage was going into. And I have assumed that for 2026 that we are not receiving a mortgage payment.
Yeah, so this is before council starts to look at this as a source of funds for, I understand that there are strategic initiatives being contemplated out of engineering. And so I would hesitate to target this as something to draw from for, water falling into something else, because I do believe that there are plans that might not have necessarily been brought to this table yet, but there are some discussions around a strategic use of those funds that don't necessarily involve playground equipment, maybe.
Next is the Moore Park Development Reserve, which Charlotte did touch on. So right now it has a balance of 2 million growing to 3.1 million. We are paying back the intra-fund borrowing for the memorial roof. So that will be a decision whether we want to continue paying that back or what we want to do there. Charlotte, did you want to talk about that?
Thank you, Charlene. So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charlene, but I believe that this balance in here contemplates payments of $132,000 a year plus interest into the 5-year financial plan. Last year, what we did was we brought forward a resolution for council to only pay the interest portion and not the principal portion. And we're anticipating to bring a similar resolution to council this year to only pay the interest, not to start with the principal repayment. Until there's a need for those funds in that fund, we have some flexibility around repayment of those funds. I don't want to get so far behind that we don't pay the interest, which is why we're recommending that the interest continues to be paid, but that you can defer the payment of the principal. So that's something we'll be bringing forward at some point in the budget process for council's consideration.
Next is the new initiatives reserve. So we are saying this is green. It's an opportunity reserve. So by the end of 2030, we have a balance of 615,000. We are putting in that local government climate change grant into this reserve to be used for any climate change projects that come up. Parkland acquisition reserve is the mandatory reserve. So the next one is the sewer capital reserve, which is in the red. So this is funded from transfers from the sewer, like frontage tax, basically. And so in 2026, we have a balance of 1.9 million. In 2030, we have a balance of $123,000. So this is a reserve that is critical that we need to have a look at.
And Councillor Bissett has a question.
Yes.
Back to the new initiatives reserve. So something like the composting program, that's a new initiative, and it's also has climate change repercussions. So I would think that is applicable to this.
Yes.
Councillor Blissett, Acting Mayor Popoff, through to Councillor Blissett. I believe we're having those discussions around, the whole solid waste model that the city is that's used here at the city. And one of the points we did ask was whether or not those funds could be used for something to do with organics. And I believe that's we're waiting to confirm that.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry.
So also with the sewer capital reserve, we are earmarking a sub-reserve, the desludging reserve for the lagoons. So we are flowing that through the sewer capital reserve, and we haven't created a statutory reserve for the desludging. So it just kind of sits in there. So right now we're putting 644,000 a year into the lagoon desludging. So by the 2030, we have $3.4 million sitting in that reserve. Charlotte, would you like to discuss that?
Thank you, Charlene. And I believe of that $3 million, 2.5 is the desludging reserve. Am I saying that right? Or is it the 3 million?
The 3.4 is the, but we have 2.5 is planned for desludging, I think in 2032 or something.
2030.
Yeah, I don't know if it's moved up to 2030 yet, but
Okay, so
Yeah.
I met with Curtis recently, Curtis Mummery, because lagoons 2 or cells 2 and 3 have been desludged and we're not quite finished with, I don't think all the invoices are in yet, but were desludged in 2025 this year. And if council remembers, the original target was, we thought it was going to cost $4.5 million to do that project. It was actually significantly less, thankfully. And so we have managed to rework the desludging reserve based on the work that was done this year and also new information that we have in terms of the amount of sludge that's building up annually. And I'm sure there are people here who could speak much more eloquently to this than I can. But what's happened is cell 1 right now on the reworked desludging model is every 7 years. Cell 2 is every 10 years, and cell 3 is every 20 years. So having reworked everything and using a fairly liberal, by that I mean low, CPI of about 3%. We know construction does not adhere to regular CPI, but I've used 3% and then built that out over into 2055 or something like that. So we do have a few periods where we do need to increase the transfer to that reserve. We're looking right now at ideally an increase of $75,000. We're hoping we can make that happen within the fees that we're charging this year, or that are going to be charged, because they're user fees. These are not frontage taxes. It's user fees that are paying for this. It's an operating expense. So of course, the intent is that the people who are here for the 7 years, the 10 years, they're contributing towards that desludging fund so that their contributions they pay for their contributions to be removed at the end of 7 years, 10 years, 20 years. So yeah, it's definitely, and I'm really happy with the project because I feel like it's something that, and I'm very appreciative of council's endorsement of the reserve, because it's a really high cost item that's going to be happening regularly, we think. I know that public works staff are looking at other options that would, like biological options that might help us prolong those desludging frequencies. But for the time being, this is what we're working with. And it's another one of those like fleet where it's easy to understand and it's easy to plan for. That doesn't necessarily mean that, collecting the fees from the residents is easy. It doesn't mean that. It means the math is fairly straightforward, and it's easy to show what the rationale is and what the benefits are. In addition to that, this is something we've talked about a little bit with these reserves, is when you factor in the growth of that reserve, by that I mean interest, it starts to affect what you need to contribute into that reserve. So interest is an important component of building these reserves. And by doing that, you're lessening the burden on the taxpayer or the fee payer. And so, but you need to allow the money to grow and not reduce the money and take it for something it's not intended for, because it needs to sit there and grow and become, a bit of an organic beast, if you like. And so I'm really pleased with where things are with that reserve, and I'm really pleased with how it appears that we are able to, with the work that we did a few years ago in establishing the fund, with very little adjustment, now that we have more information, carry on and have, a really, really valuable financing tool for that initiative. So I'd just like to say thank you to council for endorsing that project.
Question, Council Peabody.
Thank you. Charlotte, do we have to borrow to do the desludging project of cell 1?
through Acting Mayor Popoff to Councillor Peabody. No, we had a lot of grant funding. I don't believe we did any borrowing for, no, we didn't.
Okay, great.
Not for desludging because
Yeah.
I did inquire with MFA and they weren't on board for us to borrow for a project
Okay.
like desludging because
Yeah.
it's an ongoing kind of maintenance project, not a true capital project.
Yeah,
I-
I was just kind of curious if it's like, because right now our taxpayers are contributing to a reserve fund. But if they're contributing to a reserve fund and they're also paying off a loan at the same time, does it make sense to have residents kind of pay for the past desludging and the future one?
Councillor Peabody, exactly. I thought you said cell 1. I'm sorry, maybe I misheard. The cell 2 and 3 that we did this year, the plan was to borrow, even though we were pretty sure that was not going to, we weren't going to be able to do that. And because it did, so it was in the 5-year financial plan to borrow. And then as we actually, okay, this is happening, and it was $4.5 million, because we wouldn't, I don't know what we would have done, quite frankly, if it had been $4.5 million and we couldn't borrow. We would have had to scale it back significantly. But, due to a little bit of good luck and some much improved pricing, we were able to achieve the desludging of cells 2 and 3 for $1.8 million, give or take, and did not need to borrow. So, yeah.
Yeah, but no, it was cell 1 I was referring to, which was like, that was almost, was that $12 million? The first one?
Councillor Peabody, I'd have to defer to
Yeah. Well, it's okay.
someone with their fingers
Yeah.
on a little bit more detail, but it was a lot of grant funding.
Okay,
It started with like an $8 million grant that was split into $4 million for piping from Victoria, and then
Yeah.
$4 million to do the lagoon. And then we got $5.5 million from the province.
which is incredible.
Incredible. It was so fortunate that we did that. And there's still a $2.9 million project on the books for some finish up, and that was also granting. So no borrowing for cell 1.
Yeah.
Cell 2 and 3, and cell 1 I think was done in 2023. Yeah, around there, 22, 23. And then cell 2 and 3 were done, cells 2 and 3 were done this year, no borrowing.
Awesome, thank you.
And question, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So you mentioned this, I think, early on when we started talking about the sewer capital reserve. So we have sewer capital in here and then also lagoon desludging. Do you see any risk with having both of those in a sewer capital reserve? Was there any consideration of having a separate reserve specific to lagoon desludging?
Yeah, based on our discussion right now and how strong Charlotte feels about this project, I do think it would be that we should go forward and amend our consolidated bylaw to include the desludging reserve as a separate reserve and not have it on the umbrella of the sewer capital reserve.
Just a follow-up. Thank you. I look forward to that further discussion down the road. I mean, I think the risk is if there's more wiggle room that a future council might say,
Yeah.
we don't care about desludging and we're going to spend that money on something else. So yeah, I look forward to that discussion coming forward.
Okay, and I see I have the sewer capital reserve twice, so I must have thought that was a super important one to talk about. The solid waste capital reserve is also in red. The reason being is because of upcoming mechanized garbage trucks. We are not funding the replacement of those garbage trucks currently, so we either are looking at borrowing in 2030 or funding this reserve to replace those trucks. And basically, it's the excess funds transferred from the surplus of solid waste goes into this reserve, and we have not had large surpluses in the solid waste fund recently. Yeah, and we did borrow for the first mechanized trucks, short-term borrowing over 5 years. And I'm told the trucks only last for 7 years. So short-term borrowing probably is appropriate in this case for those trucks. Stormwater capital reserve is in the green. And we are building that fund. By 2030, we should have 1,024,000 in that fund. And then lastly is the water capital reserve, which is in the yellow. So this reserve again is funded from frontage tax and any surpluses from the water fund. So we are growing that reserve, but we know that we have huge water capital projects coming up. So that's why it's in the yellow. So it's not adequate to fund the asset management plan for the water.
Just a comment. So the water capital and the sewer capital, they are the two reserves where I mentioned the 1 million should be 2 million. So, you know, there are some concerns around those two capital. Because even though the money's going in, just like the road dedicated tax, the money's going in and coming out, there is very little, and even if in the years where there might be some carry forward, sometimes it's done because we need to wait. We don't have enough to do the project, you know, that we wanted to do in, say, I don't know if this is the case, but say in 2025, the funds don't get spent because we really needed 2 million. And in 2026, we'll have 2 million. So, but it also means it interferes with, you know, road projects that are becoming really, really important. So a discussion for a later date.
Okay, so that ends our this the color coded one. So so now we're going to look at the reserves transfers in. So on page, I don't know what pages. Just as an aside, from page 9 to I don't know what the end of it, you have more detail on the balances and what's coming in and out of those reserves. Up to page, up to page 29. So you have a whole bunch of detail to back up the slide that I just presented on. So page 31 is the reserve contributions.
So which page is,
Sorry.
the screen, what page is it on?
So this is actually just in my PowerPoint, but at page 31 is the reserve contributions, which includes interest. This just breaks it out in a different view. We're just showing what's transferring in from tax. So for 2026, we have 4 million transferring in from the road dedicated tax, and then other tax contributions, 3.3 million, for a total general taxes of 7.3, and then frontage taxes of 3.5, grants of 1.1. So grants is basically the gas tax, the Community Works gas tax grant, and then the interest of 537,000, and then other of 1.6. So the other is surpluses from the various funds and the retirement of debt that we are reallocating that once the debt is paid off, we're reallocating that debt into the reserves. Yeah, so that gives us for 2026 a total transferring in of 14 million. Yeah, that's for all funds. So if you look at the percentages, you can see that 57% of what we're transferring in is from general taxes. And then 23% is from frontage taxes. Do you want to talk more about this, Charlotte?
Well, just really to highlight the importance of taxes contributing to the reserves. 80% of the funding for the reserves comes from some form of tax, either general tax or frontage tax.
Okay. So reserves transfers out. Again, you have the detail on page 33 of your package. So in 2026, we have the road program, 3.8 million transferred out, and then other projects in the general fund of 6.8 million. Water fund, 2.2 million, sewer fund, 2.5 million, and then solid waste of 699,000 to give you a total of 16,149,000. Again, so the road program general fund, 31% is being of what we're transferring out. 31% is on the road program, and then 37% is in the general fund of all the other capital projects.
So just, I'm sure council can see this, but if it weren't for reserves, funding our capital projects, and many of our projects, there wouldn't be a lot getting done.
Okay, so the reserves ending balance. So this just gives you an idea of what the ending balances are looking like. So, so you have your opening balance of 17.5 million in 2026. Then you have the transfers in of 14.2 million, transfers out of 16 million, for an ending balance of 15.7 million. So you can see by 2030, we're growing that ending balance to 20 million, but in that we do have a couple reserves that we're not funding, but we're also not taking any, it's just generating interest, such as the land sales reserve and the Moore Park Reserve, it's included in that. But also we have the desludging reserve that is growing, but we're not planning on using that. And it wasn't like 2032, although Charlotte had said that we might be, it might be moving up to 2030. The airport is not included in these reserves. And then this just gives you a nice little graph just to like highlight the contributions in green, withdrawals are the blue, and then the ending balance of those reserves.
So this is one of those where the graph will, everything looks great. But as Charlene has mentioned, there are some reserves in there that are contributing to that $15 million balance or the $20 million balance that, so the details matter in looking at this information. So just want to leave that message for council.
Okay, and I know you've been asking questions all throughout, but is there any more questions?
Sorry.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So just to make sure I'm on the right track and maybe for the benefit of any community members who are watching, somebody says, geez, why is it important that my tax dollars go to reserves? So one is to, in some cases, avoid, but at least minimize borrowing costs. And then in addition, as you mentioned, to earn interest on those reserve funds. So would that be accurate?
Yes, and just to add to that, it would be the smoothing of your capital. So you can see some years are very high capital projects spending, and then other years lower. So by funding reserves to fund those capital projects, it smooths it out. So you don't have your tax rates fluctuating a lot from year to year.
And then just a follow-up, thank you. And as you've touched on, it's really a question of long-term planning. So of course, our assets and virtually everything we do in the city, the lifespan and the stewardship for those resources is much, much longer than a 4-year council term. And so it's, I think, partly building that awareness in the community and the culture around the table that this is about long-term stewardship, and that, building reserves is a really good tool to avoid borrowing costs, but also, as you say, to be earning that interest, which is, of course, compounding, which we love to see.
And CAO Furcho has a comment.
So Acting Mayor Popoff through to Councilor, I want to follow that up with something. After I've seen many cycles through many different councils through my career, what you've just raised is one of the most fundamentally important questions that come to councils. So Cranbrook's, I really appreciated when I got here that Charlotte had created the reserve policy. But just in very simple terms, it's easy for a newly elected council to come in and see reserve funds and say, why are we taxing people when there's this lump of money sitting there that can be spent? And so that always becomes a political question when, the immediate reaction is, yes, we can get elected. We'll, use that money. We'll keep taxes low. So in the short term, it's a political win on the short term that looks great. But what ends up happening to future councils, this being one that can see more clearly, is that once that money is spent, now if you have a capital project, as Councillor Peabody often points out, the cost of borrowing. So a $30 million capital project now costs $60 million when you add the interest. So you're borrowing to buy something that you could have bought for 30 million, and if you'd have bought it years ago, it would have been even less, but now it's going to cost you 60 million. So a smart council that has put away reserves, not only is the reserve ready to be used to spend on that project, but it's generating interest. So the amount of money, if you've saved the 30 million, is also growing, or say you save 20, it's growing towards the 30 million. So you borrow less. And then the cost to the taxpayer is less. So it's smarter money management that helps the taxpayer and the community in the long run. However, it's very difficult for that philosophy to survive through multiple election cycles. So embedding it in policy is one way, but the more we can transfer that knowledge from one council to the next, the better off we are as a community. Because I can tell you, I have seen this play out many times through my career, but then a council that suffers from the result of that is left with a number of capital projects that need to be done that could have been done, plus the cost of doing that work is almost literally twice because you have to borrow the money and pay the interest when it could have been saved, and the community would have ultimately saved money. But to sell that message during election cycles is very difficult. And the only thing we can do is set it in policy and hope it survives through an election cycle. So I really appreciate you raising it. It's one of the biggest issues in long-term financial management in local government.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, Council, on the reserve funds? Okay, Charlotte, we're only half an hour behind.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I caught that, but I thought, well, it's an important discussion, and I'm glad we were able to have it. I'm going to call on Tony and Jason to review the Public Works projects. And if we need to, break before engineering, we'll take care of that. We'll just play it a little bit by ear. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. Jason and myself will be presenting on the 2026 to 2030 Public Works budget today. In 2025, Public Works focused strongly on asset management and updating asset inventories, performing condition assessments. All facility assets were updated with 2025 data, which has provided us with a comprehensive path for future project planning. The inventory is being updated in our work order system, which will provide accurate life cycle costs of facility assets. In 2026, in total, Public Works has 50 capital projects for a total cost of $11 million, not including the budget annual allotments. These projects costs range from $10,000 to $5.3 million for projects such as climate action plan, roof replacement of the Kingsman Arena and the Boys and Girls Club, 62,000, and the IFAS for $5.3 million, and any other end-of-life equipment replacements. So this summer, Public Works took over the rec and culture facility assets. And so Public Works will be bringing back a presentation to the Committee of the Whole on October 27th, which will better define the direction for the facility projects. A number of these projects will be revised based on the outcome of the presentation, and priority projects will remain in the budget as is. So what you're seeing up here probably won't be what we see in a month or so. Just two items on the fleet I wanted to touch base on is the Lagoon Screener skid steer. So this is a large skid steer. So with all the upgrades and this new screener going in, we require a designated loader type equipment to deal with all those solids. And then the loader mounted sweeper, we added that in this year. So the existing street sweepers are pushing upwards over $500,000 for a unit, and they're very high maintenance. So this is a very simple loader mounted unit that we're hoping to use and try to lengthen the life of the existing sweeper. So it's a new piece of equipment we wanted to give a go.
Question, Councillor Bissett?
Sorry, I was just thinking, is it harder on the street sweeper doing those really broken up roads versus a newly paved road? Like, is there something, do we, in our road replacement program, do we have an impact on, say, the street sweeper and the long-term maintenance of that? Is that related at all?
Thank you, Councillor Blissett, through Acting Mayor Popoff. I can't say for sure, but just looking at the rough roads, like I think it would affect it at least a little bit, especially you're cleaning up large amounts of gravel and loose pavement is just going in there.
Well, because I mentioned that because I live on a really rough road and I don't see the benefit of a street sweeper going down it. Truly, like no one notices at all because of the condition of the road. And so I would think we could sort of have a reconnaissance of the roads and their condition and decide whether or not we should even bother having the street sweeper go on it. That might be a way to save some equipment and money and I think it's just reasonable. But I mean, that's off the cuff reasonable versus reality. I'm just throwing it out there. You don't have to answer.
That's a good question. And Tony, the streets get swept 4 times throughout the cycle. When we're taking the gravels and sands off the winter roads from the winter time, there's a 4 cycle sweep on the roads.
Acting Mayor Popoff. After winter, we just go through all the streets just once. And then it depends on storms throughout the year if streets need it
Very
again.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you. It might be more for Charlotte and asking this right up front. So I went through all of the material last night and then came to the last section, which was carryovers from 2025. And I started to wonder, but I didn't want to go back and look whether all of those carryover projects are reflected in 2026. And it's a question for here as well. So yeah, are they included somewhere as we went through I didn't want to go back and start over and say, okay, I see that one up here. I see this one over there.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky, through Acting Mayor Popoff. No, the carry forwards are in the carry forward section, and these are new projects. There may be some reference to some of the carry forward projects have additional asks on them. So that I'm not exactly, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure, as an example off the top of my head, but there are some additional asks on some of those carry forward projects, and those would be reflected in here.
Okay, so that'll be a separate discussion and a separate vote at some point, the carryover projects.
Councillor Stetsky, through Acting Mayor Popoff, that is not the intent. The intent is that the carry forward projects have already been approved, and the intent is not to review them in detail. If there are questions about some of those carry forward projects, of course, but the intent is not to go through the carry forward list.
Okay, so to continue our presentation, Public Works number 466 for the library ramp replacement. So this project here is strictly grant dependent. So the Cranbrook Public Library has submitted a grant through the Columbia Basin Trust for up to $100,000. $40,000 would just be strictly for contingency of that. So yeah, once again, that's just for grant, is fully grant dependent on that one. The next one is the Western Financial Playground replacement. So as was announced a week or so ago, the city was awarded that $13 million grant for the daycare. So looking at where they're going to be building the new daycare, the playground will have to either be moved or replaced. So we have $158,000 for the full replacement. And we are looking at relocating the existing equipment where we just met with a vendor just last week and we're just waiting for costs for that. So there might be some potential cost savings there.
And question, Councillor Ray.
Yeah.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So somewhere else in the package, there's reference to the Idlewild Park fitness and obstacle course project, which we've touched on in previous years as well. So recently I understand that Active Cranbrook, it sounds like has, I don't know if it's paint or stickers, has put down activity markers on the trail at Idlewild around balance and those kinds of things, which to me is kind of the same function as a fitness park / obstacle course. I can't recall what the source of funding is for that Idlewild project, but if it's the same source of funding as the Western Financial potential playground replacement, I'm wondering, could we perhaps consider deleting the Idlewild project, as it might arguably it'd be a bit redundant, and repurpose that funding for any required funding for this playground project at Western Financial Place?
Councillor Ray through the acting mayor Popoff. I believe the project that you're referring to is a rec and culture one that the Public Works is taking over, and I believe it's later on in the year. We are going to be looking at all those projects to, of course, see where there's some cost savings or deferring or even cancellation. So we will definitely take that into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Ray through Acting Mayor Popoff. Melissa is telling me that Idlewild project is a DCC project. So slightly different treatment, and it looks like it's in 2029. Yeah. But certainly something to take back and review with Fergus.
Okay, so continuing on with Public Works. The Rotary Park Cenotaph fencing and in-ground lighting. So this is budgeted for $77,000. So the Public Works has also been working in collaboration with the local Legion on potential this potential project. It's looking, it's getting busier. The Rotary Park's getting busier. There's been concerns of citizens crawling on the cenotaph and the wall and that kind of stuff. So we're looking at potentially this project to include some fencing around the cenotaph and some in-ground lighting that'll, you know, better present the cenotaph at night and through special events.
Question, Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. Pardon my ignorance on this, but the cenotaph, like, is this a sacred site? Like, I mean, I've been in Ottawa where there's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and that is a burial place, but why would we want to protect our cenotaph from kids crawling on it? Is there something sacred about it? I'm not sure.
CEO Vircho, did you have a comment?
Yes, so this will be presented more fully. Like I said, today is really just about an overview, but just on that, since you asked the question, Councillor Bissett through the acting mayor, is the Legion approached the city in regards to this. And so I guess from their perspective that the cenotaph, for some people that are named on the cenotaph, that is, that never came home. That's literally the only place that their name is memorialized. So they see it as a very sacred memorial. And so The other thing I just want to add is the Legion is actively seeking grant funds, but they're also actively, I'm struggling for words, trying to raise money to offset the capital costs. So what we're putting forward is the total capital cost of the project. Once we get later into the year, I'm hoping to have a clearer picture of what they think they might be able to have raised in donations to put towards this as well. And that's probably going to be a moving target through to when we start construction. They will try. So this will be more like an up to that dollar amount, and then it'll be offset by how much money they raise. So yeah, they had approached us about this one.
And question, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. The, further to CEO Furcho's comments, the Legion has put together a good pamphlet they have available for the public, providing exactly that. Great question, that kind of information. So yeah, the only commemoration of a number of folks who served. And, you know, I understand the city has put up the little signs now that are at the corner posts saying, please don't climb on the cenotaph. And it sounds like, unfortunately, that's, they haven't been very effective. So yeah, we'll see the project when it comes forward in more detail, but I think a proper fence would just give folks more cause or more pause to not be climbing on the cenotaph. It is historic, so partly the concern is that it potentials that it's deteriorating as there's folks on it rather than just looking at it. And I think having a proper fence there that's aesthetically pleasing and also serves a purpose will just help us share that space. It's great to see Rotary Park being used for lots of different events, and this will help us respect the elements of the park that are related to the Legion and still be able to use the park for other events that bring vibrancy to our community.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Steskis.
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment. I've also seen conflict between some of our residents down at that particular site where somebody was inside sitting on it, somebody was outside. They said, get out of there. That's disrespectful. And if we can stop that sort of thing happening in the future, I think that's a good thing.
All right, under wastewater projects, so as you can see by the trends, there are a number of end-of-life asset replacement projects. So as per asset management plan, so just continuing to follow that. We wanted to highlight one project.
Yeah, so right now, our current aeration system down at the lagoons, it just recently went over as part of the capital projects is to change the diffusers. And out of that, now we are using a very fine aeration bubble. So we're actually increasing the aeration and the flow rate through that. So Public Works has reviewed the existing blowers there, and it turns out that we can actually reduce the amount of blowers that we have there. So right now, our lobe style, they're coming to the end of life. They're very hard to maintain. They're very expensive. We're looking to go to a different style. It's called a rotary screw. Anyways, it'll give us better aeration, less cost. We should be looking at about a $12,000 per year savings in operational electrical costs. And also BC Hydro has an incentive program right now where if we do purchase that, we can get $99,000 back for that. Okay, so for Public Works, we also have several projects that are under 75,000. So this includes some of the projects that you see there, which is asset management, equipment replacements, heater replacements, those kind of projects. And that total will be coming to about 879,000 for 2026.
Question, Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think one of the projects that falls under there is the heater replacement at the senior center. Let me just find it here. Yeah, it's the hydronic baseboard heater for $42,000. I'm just wondering, are we replacing the hydronic baseboard heaters with something that's more efficient, that like a heat pump that would have possibly rebates, or are we just going to keep the same system in there? Do you know?
Councillor Peabody through the acting mayor. We will definitely look at that, of course. This has been a new project brought in for 2026 just because of some of the leaks that we've seen that we brought forward to council and that were approved for some renovations because of some leaks. So this has kind of been from that. But of course, we'll look at our existing boiler system and see what can be used to maybe some potential cost savings there. And
Great, awesome, thank you.
Question, Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So for projects under $75,000, are the speed monitoring signs new signs or replacing existing signs? Do we have key locations we're looking at?
Councillor Ray through the acting mayor. Those speed monitoring signs, it's a new ask. We're asking for about $20,000. We don't have any specific spots right now, but ICBC does have a grant program where they will pay up to 50% of the signs. So an average sign is about $7,500. So we're looking to get a few of those signs that we could put up throughout the city where it makes sense strategically and safely.
So does this expense already take into account grant fundings, or this is the total cost we're looking at and then we're hoping to get some grant funding to offset that?
This would be the total amount and then looking to get the grants.
Great. And then one other question, if I may, regarding under $75,000, or it's at 75. So one of the projects listed is the 10th Avenue and Baker Street traffic lights replacement. So just wanted to touch base. Are we still waiting for the traffic assessment there?
Councillor Ray through the acting mayor. Yes, we are still waiting for that traffic safety study to be completed, and that will be the final decision maker.
Thank you.
So Jason, question, Occupational Health and Safety Program Administration, is that capital or is that operational?
We're asking for a capital amount. Basically, all of our safe work procedures and a number of all of our safe work procedures at Public Works, they need to be updated. They're all from about 10 years ago, and we've been trying to get them done last 2-3 years, and it's always off the side of our desk. So we just need, it's a bit of a risk, and we need to clean it up so they're up to date and new ones are put out for new equipment.
Sure. So we're purchasing some equipment for this? This is a capital ask, right? So.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Acting Mayor Popoff. It's under special projects. So special projects tend to be things like studies and something like what Tony's referring to here. So no, it's not equipment, or it's probably a consulting contract.
For 2027 capital projects, so in total, Public Works has 49 capital projects for 2027, or for 2027, for a total of $3,641,000. So under other city facilities, 395,000, rec facilities, 1,324,000, mobile and other equipment, 1,166,000, parks and trails, 63,500, water, we're looking at 105,000, sewer, 548,000, and special projects and another 40,000.
And then in 2028.
Question, Councillor Stetsky. Sorry, Jason. Question.
Yeah, just a quick question. So under rec facilities, does that include Western Financial Place or not? It shows up in a number of other places in the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky. Yeah, so we basically broke out rec facilities just simply because it's we've just taken it on this year. So that's Western Financial, the curling club, and the 2 arenas.
Maybe we'll come back to this later, but I know there were some Western Financial Place, incredible millions of dollars potentially, as you know, just to keep the place going. At one point, I know we were pursuing potentially getting some involvement of the regional district, maybe Area C, into helping cover some of those costs. I'm just wondering where those discussions are at.
CAO?
So just on a couple of fronts on that. So Acting Mayor Popoff through to Councillor Stetsky, there's the operating costs. And so there was some discussion around the RD Area C residents participating in that versus a two-tier system. So that question will be going out to Area C residents, and I believe then that might be through the next municipal election cycle. That might be a ballot question. So I've been working with the RD on the wording of that question, and the funding amounts is something we've bounced back and forth with council. Secondly is the capital costs, and Western Financial, as we all know, the original design wasn't the greatest, and it saddled us with a lot of recapitalization costs of fixing things that weren't built correctly. And so Tony will be presenting in the committee of the whole meeting prior to the capital budgets about sort of how through the asset management program, he's looking at changing how we do capital projects in the city for facilities. So that's something to look forward to in the committee of the whole. And just the discussion on why it's in culture or in public works is, if council can recall, I did the restructure where all facilities now fall under the asset management program headed up by Public Works, rather than split out with Culture and Rec, which was kind of undergunned in that process. So we've now moved everything under that with Steve Bell and Tony and Jason and his crew there.
Okay, so back to our presentation. In 2028, Public Works has 35 capital projects, totaling 4.9 million. So again, in facilities, it's 510,000. Rec facilities is 2.2 million. Mobile and other equipment is 1.5 million. Parks and trails, 294,000. Water is 58,000, sewer is 378,000, solid waste is 250,000, and then lastly, special projects is 97,000.
In 2029 capital projects, in total, Public Works has 56 capital projects for a total cost of $5,850,000. So in city facilities, 1,379,000, rec facilities, 1,546,000, mobile and other equipment, 1,189,000, parks and trails, we're looking at 473,000, water, 158,000, sewer, 815,000, and special projects, 290,000.
And lastly, in 2030, Public Works has 41 capital projects for a total of 6.6 million. Facilities is 570,000. Rec facilities is 1.1 million. Mobile and other equipment, 705,000. Office and technological equipment, 112,000. Parks and trails, 225,000. Water is looking at 103,000. Sewer, 815,000. And lastly, solid waste at 2.9 million. And just to talk about that one, so that would include the automated truck replacements for the solid waste. Yeah, any questions?
So all of these line items of the big numbers, there's going to be further breakdown and discussion as we move forward?
Yes, that's the intent on
Very good.
November
Thank you.
19th. We'll have more detail.
Yeah, so Acting Mayor Popoff. So yeah, on the 19th, we will be discussing primarily, really, quite frankly, focusing on 2026 with any projects that then, spread out into 2027. So if there are questions right now about some of these projects in the later years, you have all the detail. And as we move through the 5-year financial plan, over time, I mean, we will be reviewing year 1 and year 2 projects with you in detail. So again, if there are any significant questions about some of the bigger items later on, you should ask them now. And then, because the intent is not to bring back 28 through 30 beyond this,
Sure.
for this year's budget process.
Thank you. Councillor Rick?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So I'm just wondering overall how, sort of whatever our approach is in terms of environmentally friendly strategies. So when we look at fleet replacement, how are we considering electric vehicles? How does that decision-making process work?
Thank you, Councillor Ray. So our fleet policy, basically, we states we have to find the most economical through the life cycle costs. So, you know, still, as of today, they still don't make a half-ton pickup that is usable for work. You know, we've this year replaced 2 half-ton pickups with hybrids. So those small Mavericks. So, you know, they you know, like in that scenario, they go from 12 liters per 100K to 6. So we're trying to make the best choices of what's available, and trying to as a policy is we buy the most economical vehicle for its purpose.
Thank you. And I totally think hybrids are, right, that's incremental progress for sure. So if that makes sense, I think that's a great strategy. What's the environment like for, is there any granting that's related to, you know, environmental initiatives that you're seeing that you might be able to access?
Well, we just went through the fleet review, and that was all grant funded. You know, one of the projects on here is to electrify public works, so we can grow the electric fleet. So we're continually monitoring grants for that. We did apply once and were declined. One of our trades vans was 100% grant funded through the electric van, 100% grant funded. So as they come out, we're applying for them. It doesn't seem to be that the trend has sort of moved away from that, it seems, on the grant side of things, and going to more well, you know, where we're at federally on that. So
Continue.
Thank you. New line of questioning. Thank you very much. So when we're thinking about options for intersections, if you know off the top of your head, what's the approximate cost for traffic lights for a 4-way intersection, and versus what's the cost for like the flashing pedestrian lights?
I think that would have to be a cost or a question for engineering.
Thank you. Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. Just further to the electric vehicle stuff, at Regional District, one of the other towns used the gas tax money for EV purchase. So that is available to us as well. And I'm not sure if you're thinking along that line, but that's what they did.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Charlotte, I see we have Amanda up for a 10-minute presentation from the RCMP. Shall we have her come forward and then we'll take a break?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Popoff. I think we should have Amanda come up. I don't think she'll take 10 minutes. She doesn't have a lot. Her items are smaller. So I'll have Amanda come up and basically, you know, answer some questions if council has any. We don't have a lot of items over there that Amanda's responsible for. What I do want to just mention is on Amanda's RCMP list is the funding for the study or for the design for the RCMP station. So anything related to the RCMP detachment renovations. We will be having a separate discussion with council about that when we have a little bit more and when Tony's ready with his updated information.
Excellent. Thank
So
you.
I will have Amanda now speak to you maybe a little bit. I think she has one large item if she wants to review that, or if you have any questions for her.
Yes, good afternoon. I do have just two capital projects to speak to, so I will be very brief. The first is office chair replacement for the amount of $7,000. This is a continuation of the chair replacement project that we had started in the 2025 year. And this is simply to replace chairs that are end of life or not ergonomic. And the second item, a new request, is desk replacement in the amount of $5,000. And that is to replace a couple of desks in the detachment which are not functional nor able to be ergonomic, likely not created for office use, more home use. Any of these equipment that we do purchase, the desks or chairs, will of course be reused in post renovation.
Thank you. Questions? Well, that was an awesome 10-minute presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, shall we take a 10-minute bio break and we'll convene back in 10 minutes or so. Thank you.
Okay, so continuing on, next up will be Engineering and Development Services and IPD. And Director Matika will be presenting this section.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will be going through the project list as circulated in the agenda. So that'll be starting on, I believe, page 51 of 103 on the version that I have here. Okay, so I will start here. Item 1 that we have on this list is downtown parking improvements. This is a new item. There's going to be some more information and details brought forward to council on this, but this is following the recommendations of the downtown parking study on looking at updating some of our parking infrastructure, looking at the implementation of digital systems. Right now we're seeing that we do have challenges. I have less change rolling around in the bottom of my truck to pay for parking, and more people do want to look at some app-based services. We've looked significantly at the cost of kiosks that some communities have, but the cost of kiosks, the upfront installation, the long-term maintenance of them, it seems to be perhaps like an in-between technology that some communities are encountering. City of Winnipeg has recently removed all of their kiosks because it's not sustainable, and the majority of their payments are going through an app. We understand that there's transitions in technology and usership, but there's going to be some more work done on that, and that's where there's another item further down, downtown parking implementation plan. That $10,000 is going to be combined with some carry forward from last year's downtown parking study to look at the range of options that we have and an implementation plan, because it does need to be done carefully. We can keep meters in a lot of locations and double it up with some of that digital stuff. Next one, DSC 0045, liquid waste management plan, and intended with chatting with Charlotte about this ahead of the meeting. We've recently received some information through our consultant and in talking with other communities and provincial agencies where this liquid waste management plan is looking to be something that may be becoming less cost effective and a significant resource burden for city and for the staff. So right now we've put a pause on the project as we look at other options. It's not a regulatory requirement for us at this moment, but it is something that we were looking to need for future compliance issues. So we'll probably be bringing this back to council, if not during this budget cycle early in the new year. So it's something that's not an urgent item, and we don't want to drive down the road of something that's going to take a lot of staff time and resources and costs if it's not the right solution for the city or for our community. Next item, the downtown revitalization and beautification. This has been some annual allotment that we've had either for seed funding for beautification projects or for other revitalization initiatives. I'm happy to say that we've recently entered into an agreement and a joint event with Cranbrook Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Business Association to host an event to highlight the revitalization tax exemption bylaws that council has passed, to look at doing some engagement and to look at creating some promotional material on that to really help spur on both the downtown revitalization and the Victoria Avenue corridor. So we're going to be using some of those funds for this. And if that does involve a new and re-engaged DBA, which we're looking at that being a good possibility, then we do believe that leaving this funding in there for those types of initiatives will be valuable in the future. The growth management study, this is a new item. This is an item that did come to council earlier this year. It's going to be a joint initiative with the regional district, as it is a sort of a boundary growth planning exercise. It's something where, as you can see, there's $100,000 in grants and contributions. The RDK is going to be reviewing that request from their own staff, I believe, at the November board meeting is what they were shooting for. And this is that study that would help inform our decision-making and council's decision-making when it comes to approving growth and development outside of the city, but that may have impacts to city infrastructure, well-being, aquifers, those types of things. And then it will also inform some of the City of Cranbrook's plans for any potential future boundary expansion or growth opportunities. So it is something that we find is really valuable, and we're hoping to be successful through the requests that the RDK is bringing to their board as well. And then another new project, the Cranbrook North Land Use Update and Development Strategy. This has been brought forward to council on a couple of occasions, especially in the light of a lot of development interest that's happening in the north area. So this would encapsulate Wildstone as well, which we've seen some uncertainty or variance from the original development plan. We're seeing different land ownership. We also have the sunsetting of the tax clause that we have for the north area boundary expansion. That includes a lot of those properties that were brought in from the RDEK that have historical RDEK zoning and have those lower tax levels. So we want to really come up with some planning exercises that will talk about how that land can be developed, what is the future use there, and how we can facilitate it, because a lot of property owners, as you know, need to work together. And without having corridor planning, infrastructure planning, intersection planning, working with highways, it's leaving it on the backs of individual landowners to figure this all out. And we believe this would be a really sound return on investment to go through with that initiative. The next page just highlights again the ongoing downtown revitalization. In 2028, we do see an eliminated project, which is the signalization of Baker Street and 14th Avenue. Both the design portion and the construction portion.
Question, Councilor Brissett.
Sorry, I just wanted to comment, I'm not sure well, anyways, it sort of fits in. I gotta say, I love these new four-way stops where we've replaced lights, just personally, because I mean, I realize in driving by the people that are on strike, I do this so many times per day, going back and forth and things, and it's so much better. Oh my goodness. And it makes it so much more pleasant to drive through those intersections compared to when we used to have lights there. Just an aside.
Thank you very much. That's a good comment for sure.
Question, Councilor Peabody.
Thank you. Going back to the downtown parking meters. Sorry, is the $200,000, is that just for the meters? Is that a whole project?
Councilor Peabody, through the acting mayor, that it's been a tough project to scope because we do need to look at the study that we want to have done that looks at the host of options. Some of the recommendations that we've looked at was purely, going to a kiosk-based system and removing all the meters. And we felt there's a lot of shortcomings from that. So right now, there is no defined plan for what that is. That's something that we would come to council with and also engage the public with. We felt that when we priced out the costs of what the standard expectation is for walking to one of those kiosks, which would be having multiple of them per block in the downtown area, it would be over $500,000 to do so. And then as soon as one of those gets hit by a vehicle, or in a few years, they become redundant with technology, it becomes a big challenge. The exact plan isn't in place. This is based on a hybrid of looking at some of those kiosks in some of our downtown parking lots, where we could look at having paid parking, or where we have the reserve parking right now that could be opened up to paid parking in the evenings or on the weekends after hours. And then this is also consideration of what it would look like per user and for software for the city to have an app-based parking solution. So right now, there's no plans to remove meters everywhere, and in a lot of cities, meters do remain a long-term solution that are in place, especially in accessible parking stalls or in certain areas where users tend to want to do that. But it is, it's not to say it's a shot in the dark, but it's a conservative estimate that would allow us to start bringing those solutions forward. It would likely be a multi-year phased-in solution, so that budget may go up or down depending on what comes forward to council out of the study.
Okay, so just to be clear, no, $200,000 isn't just for the study. This is what we're roughly guessing the implementation of the new parking system might cost.
Yes, and that would at the very least look at getting an app-based system that could overlay on top of the existing metered system that we
Yeah.
have right now, which would be a hybrid that would allow us to continue getting revenue while still keeping the meters in place
Okay.
as we look to potentially transition them out if they become end of life and we have to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. And just one question around the land use update and development strategy for the north end there. Is there any aspects of that going to be hindered by ALR, or have we taken that in consideration?
Councillor Graham, through the acting mayor, that will be a major component of that work. So that may also include some working alongside the RDEK as they're looking at considering similar initiatives outside of our boundary, but in the same area. But we do understand the city does have land in the ALR that we've looked at some consideration of future land uses for with the old landfill site. And there's a lot of other properties there that may be considered being encumbered by that designation, and whether or not it is reasonable. So that is going to be highlighted as a part of that exercise.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So just a reminder for those of us who weren't at the table at the time, what was the year that the Northlands, the farthest part, became part of the city of Cranbrook? And then what was the time frame on the tax structure for that transition?
I'll ask our CFO. She's got a report that she's working on that will speak to that as well.
The first year was either 2008 or 2009, and it expires at the end of 2027. So January 1st, 2028 would be when municipal tax rates would apply to those properties.
Maybe just, sorry, just add to that. We do have an administrative update on that because the notification, what we wanted to do is send notice out to the residents about that upcoming change a couple of years out. So that notice has gone out to residents. And so we have an administrative update. I'm just looking at how long the October 20th agenda is. So you may see it on the 20th. If the agenda is looking a little long, we're going to bump it to November 3rd. But that update is coming to council.
Thank you. And Mike, you made reference of signalization of Baker and 14th. We're talking full traffic lights in that intersection?
Acting Mayor Popoff, we had initially looked at that previously, but we've deferred that project indefinitely based on some conversations that we've had with council and looking at what solutions may make more sense. And that's in the light of other discussions that I've had of, to maintain our inventory of signalized traffic lights that may not be optimum or may not be most efficient or safe or effective. That project is no longer going to be in the 5-year plan.
It's off the books. Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So now is the time to ask this question. So it looks like a set of signals, traffic lights at one intersection is about $75,000.
I believe that was just, I'd have to look and see where that. That the design was $75,000. Sorry, Councillor Ray, through the acting mayor. So the design itself was $75,000. The signalization, so the construction itself at the time was estimated at $825,000. So if we're going to put a round number, you'd be looking at around $1 million per signalized intersection for new construction and then replacement, and that doesn't go that far down the road with these components.
Thank you. And then just as a quick follow-up, do we have a rough number if we were looking at an intersection and wanted to have 2 flashing pedestrian crossing lights? Do we know what the approximate cost is for that?
Councillor Ray, through the acting mayor, we don't have estimates on something that would be equitable there. I know we've looked at the mid-block flashing lights that we have in 2 locations on Victoria are much more robust because it's a much larger lane, so they're overhead hanging signalized lights, and even the ones on the highway are different. If we were to look at something on a smaller intersection in a more downtown basis, there's not a lot of standards that I'm aware of that do have like a flashing light in those areas. My guess it would be significantly less, maybe to the tune of $10,000 to $20,000 to look at that if there is power already in the ground. So that would be a good alternative for us to look at if there are desires for pedestrian safety upgrades, because we have had some concerns expressed about once these new 4-ways are in place for a while, people get used to them, but it's that initial transition. And we've even requested staff look into even having temporary flashing lights that can be attached to those stop signs or attached to where those pedestrian crossing signs are. So then once people get used to it, then the traffic and the pedestrians can understand that that's how it runs.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move along then to the IPD projects on page 55. Some of these will just have some annual allotments, so I won't get into any details on the annual allotments unless there's a significant change noted there. So we have our capital works program, general and storm sewer allotment, IPD 67, the Creekside Townhomes. That's a project that required some oversizing and improvements of the sewer that was being done in conjunction with that development happening there. It's along the alignment of the Victoria Avenue sewer trunk. And this is one of those great opportunities where the city works with a developer to come up with an agreement while they're installing infrastructure to service their development. We pay the difference for oversizing it for future growth and development. And it needs to come out of, under the current policy, out of the following year's budget allotment. IPD 0071. This project did come forward, I believe, for a brief discussion during the DCC conversations. This is a more cost-effective method to address some of the safety concerns where we do have it at 4th Street and 8th Street crossing Victoria Avenue. The intersection safety for people to either turn left or go straight across at those locations is becoming a major issue. One of the initial thoughts was having it be completely divided with a large concrete divider that would go along there. That would cost more money, and it would potentially cause some issues with maintenance and plowing along Victoria Avenue. So these would just be small concrete islands that would just restrict the movements to essentially a right in and right out on those intersections and direct traffic to the signalized intersections that are only 1 block away on either side.
And Mike, what's the technical term for those extensions?
Or I was going to say, for a lack of a better word, pork chops. We haven't had lunch
I wanted
yet.
you to say it.
Yes, I could tell. Okay, moving on, water main, we have our annual allotment. Sewer main, we have our annual allotment. And then in 2026 here, IPD 052, the Beaumont Park Sanitary Sewer. That is the continuation of the sewer trunk project that's just wrapping up on Victoria Avenue right now. That's stubbing off into that location of Beaumont Park. And you'll see this carry on through the years as we want to extend this further up that Victoria Avenue sewer shed to facilitate a lot of the infill growth and other development that's happening in that area. For special projects, first one there is an additional ask of $50,000 on top of the initial project fund for the Phillips Supply trunk condition assessment. Staff at engineering and public works spent a lot of time looking at this because the project would conventionally require an entire shutdown of our water system. And the shutdown and the draining of the water and then restarting and repressurizing most of the city's water system comes with a lot of resources and a lot of risks. So the consultant came up with some solutions where we can deploy the inspection equipment under a live operating system for approximately another $50,000, which we felt would mostly be offset by saving our staff time, and then also the risks and the impacts to our ability to have fire flow reliably during that time is just something that we felt wasn't reasonable for us to undertake.
Councillor Stetsky has a question.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. So back just quickly to Ballman Park sanitary sewer. When I went by yesterday, they were digging up the corner of the Western Financial Place parking lot. So that's, how far does that go? And then where do we have to pick up to get to Baker Park from there?
Councillor Stetsky through the acting mayor. So yeah, that's around the end of the project that's going to be done this year. That alignment does continue along through Balmont Park, sort of behind the dirt jumps that are there on the other side of the Street Angels building. It goes up First Street and then takes a left-hand turn up through Baker Park. So next year's project, it will depend a little bit on exactly where the costs are and how far it can get into Baker Park, because we're dealing with creek crossings. And once we get into creek crossings, old infrastructure, groundwater issues, we're not certain exactly how far it will get into Baker Park or across Baker Park. And a lot of those items will have to be addressed more at the actual detailed design stage. Okay, IPD 0039, Phillips Reservoir Dam Safety Review. That's a regulatory requirement from provincial dam safety to undertake safety reviews every several years. And then you can see there are some project movements happening further down the list, with some items being moved and increased. And I believe they're all going to be further along here in the next few pages. So I'll speak to them once they come up in the year that they've been moved to. Moving on to 2027, we have our annual allotments for general and for storm sewer through the Capital Roads program. We have our annual allotment for water main. Two of the projects there that have seen movements and increase are the water trunk main between PRV 1 and 9th Street South, as well as the PRV upgrade to station number 1. So these projects are intertwined. Initially, it was looked at as replacing what was there based on very, very old condition issues and water infrastructure trespassing in private property. Since that, we've done some additional studies and looked at our water quality and supply master plan, looked at the growth and the needs from our housing assessment, and some of the work that we've done related to the Phillips supply line, the Gold Creek Dam. And we've analyzed that these both the pipeline and the pressure reducing station need to be increased in capacity significantly. It's the main feed going into town, so it does need to definitely have that redundancy for flow. And it's also at a location in the future where we're looking at having a secondary storage reservoir that would allow us to have additional capacity if there was a failure of the supply line. So the cost did increase significantly on those projects, and that's mostly just to plan for rather than replacing existing, replacing and planning for growth. For sewer, we have our annual allotments, and then we have the Balmont Park sanitary sewer. So that's a continuation of that project from the previous year. So it looks like for this one, from the scope perspective, it looks at it's going to Baker Park. So I misspoke. In 2026, it's likely going just through Balmont Park and up to 21st Avenue, and then the second phase would be 21st Avenue to within Baker Park. And then IPD 0027 would be a water master plan update, and that would be primarily an update to the water quality and supply master plan, just looking at updated growth projections and updated cost forecasts for a lot of those big items that do help us with the long-term financial planning. There's some projects moved there. I guess one of them that is moved out is the 30th Avenue North storm replacement, and that's been moved out to 2031 with a cost increase. There could be changes to that if we do see more development occurring in that area, but that would be, dependent on those items happening in the future. And then there was a project eliminated, which was the Kootenai Street and 6th Street traffic signalization. And that's been removed as it's been combined with that entire corridor review, as that intersection and the highway intersection would really need to be a part of one combined design and construction activity. 2028, we have our annual allotments again for general and storm sewer. For street and traffic lights, we have a DCC project, which was the signalization at Ridgeview and Theatre Road and Ridgeview and Willowbrook. That was moved from 2027 and then slightly reduced. We have our annual allotment for the capital program, and then we have a larger project there, which is the twinning of the supply line from the Phillips Reservoir. That was pushed back from 2027 and increased with an updated cost estimate. And the timing of that will again be greatly informed by the condition assessment work that we're looking at doing. That will inform whether or not we can risk manage deferring this project or whether we need to accelerate it, depending on the condition assessment results that we're hoping to get in the spring or early summer. Sewer, we have our annual allotment, IPD 60, the continuation of that Victoria sewer trunk line, and then the Panorama sanitary sewer trunk. That is a DCC project, and our most recent updated sewer planning that was done in conjunction with the OCP identified that there is a capacity issue there. So if we are looking at having some more development happening in the 30th Avenue North area, especially north of Panorama, there are some sewer capacity issues there. So we combine it as a DCC project such that one single developer may not need to front end all the work, and we can have it undertaken as a DCC project. And then moving on to 2029, our annual allotments in general, in storm, in water, and in sewer. And then we have the IPD 19 transfer pipeline upgrades, phase 2. So that's the transfer pipeline from our current lagoons out to the spray irrigation site. That's something that it's been on and off the project list for going on more than 10 years now. We monitor it carefully because if we're able to reduce some of our inflow, anything that happens as far as water reduction directly correlates to reducing our outflow and outflow capacity. So we're certainly not interested in doing it any sooner. It's not necessarily a condition concern, it's more of a capacity concern. So we monitor that, and we don't want to jump in on it unless it does become necessary. And then we have the project move, which is going to be shown on the next list as far as the treatment plant. 2030, again, our annual allotments. And then we have our DCC project partially funded, IPD 49, 11th Street South, and that would be the connection between 14th Avenue and 16th Avenue South, which is currently an existing right-of-way, it's just unconstructed.
A question, Council Stensky.
Yeah, I'm sure it just was the insertion of the incorrect number, but the capital works under the roads program was almost 5.5 million in 2029. And then the number on here shows 4,400,000. So it's a drop rather than an increase. Seems to be corrected the following. And no following year, but I think it's just an incorrect number inserted because I don't think we're going backwards.
Unless that's a portion of that coming out of to fund 49. Okay, so I believe that the annual allotment hasn't changed as far as what's come in through the dedicated tax, but that portion is lower because it's some of that year's been transferred to that IPD 49 project. So overall, the funding levels aren't being reduced. Sometimes project funds get pulled out of the general allotment and shown on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
IPD 70, that's 6th Street Northwest widening, and that's that larger combined project that would involve the highway intersection, Kootenai Street intersection, and Industrial Road 2 intersection. IPD 76, that's a 6th Street Northwest storm sewer. That's where we do have some existing capacity issues on 6th Street Northwest, and if we do continue to see development upstream of there, we're going to need to do some improvements. And that the timing of that would only make sense to do it while the highway improvement works are happening. So those two projects, while different, would be likely codependent as far as timing is concerned. For water, we have our annual allotment, and then IPD 24, the water treatment plant. So I believe we've been successful in achieving our deferral as far as filtration is concerned with the work that Public Works has been doing with the ongoing operations and monitoring and water quality work. However, subject to having that deferral, we always need to have this project sitting in the books, so to speak, such that if it is imposed, we're showing it as being planned for accordingly.
And question, Councillor Bissett.
So I always seem to ask the same question. So now it's about water meters. Is that factored in here at all? Like, is there a capital expenditure for the city on that, or is that on just the consumers? I'm just not seeing anything in 2026 that relates to water metering.
Councillor Bissett, through the acting mayor, at this point in time, we're continuing to go through with the metering of all new builds, and then the metering of any time that there's a plumbing permit or significant plumbing alterations, or whenever there's a replacement or certain repairs to the service. We haven't fully scoped out the long-term capital plan. I know we brought that forward in a previous report, but the work still needs to be done to look at whether it's something that we can incorporate that into here. Some of that was going to be done in conjunction with the water and sewer rate study.
Yes.
So I believe at the next budget meeting, we can bring forward more information just to see if those projects do need to align with each other. We can provide an update to say whether or not more universal metering is something that we can look at for a capital budget next year to start capturing, or how we're going to phase that in.
Okay, because that had repercussions for all of the capital works in water, because we were looking at significantly reducing demand. And so now that's not happening.
Councillor Bissett, through the acting mayor, that any plan that we would look at doing for doing universal metering would be probably a 5 to 10 year implementation. So it would take a lot of time to update, and then the fees and rates really need to be set in order to understand how much we're incentivizing or disincentivizing water use. So it is very, very difficult for us to project without having a significant number of meters in place and without council setting a metered rate for the water meters to see how tight we want to really have that window of acceptable water use versus higher water use. Okay, so finalizing this in sewer for 2030, we have our sewer main replacement annual allotment. We have a relining of the spray irrigation header line, and then Joseph Creek sanitary sewer. And that's a continuation of that same sewer trunk work from 4th Street South to 7th Street South, pretty much at the top end of what that project is looking to do over the next 5 years.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have Chief Driver up next, I believe?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just making sure no other questions for Director Matika. Okay. All right, and then yes, up next is Chief Driver.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Richard. So I don't have a PowerPoint because mine is not as short as the RCMP's, but it is quite short. It's fitting. So for 2026, this. Does everyone have this in front of them or can see it on the screen? Tony already spoke to some fleet stuff, and we were sort of asked to not speak to things under $20,000. $20,000 for Fire 72 atmospheric monitoring. It's actually one of three, so we split that over a 3-year period. We had a program manager speak to us this year about our regulatory requirements for monitoring, which are split between the city departments that need monitoring and the public safety perspective. So we've combined our atmospheric monitoring program into the fire hall, but we use it across departments. Rec services use it for ammonia, public works or waterworks uses it with the chlorine that they're currently using. And then we use it out in the public as well. So we all share the responsibility, but you find it in my budgets. We have a $50,000 need, but we've split it up over 3 years. So 26, 27, and 28, you'll see 2020 and $10,000 needs there. So I just wanted to speak to that one quickly. $200,000 for wildfire mitigation. That's a grant funded, independent on the grant funding that's available from the province. And the next interesting one is $50,000 for Fire Smart landscaping demonstration. So we're working with Parks, and they've suggested that we use a consultant to figure out which building around the city we're going to launch our homeowner Fire Smart program with, and then using money from the wildfire mitigation reserves that we've obtained from harvesting. We would take the landscaping needs around the building, use them to demonstrate to the public what we're asking them to then go do in their own homes, and then multiply that investment across the community. Because if a wildfire was to impact the community, the landscaping and sort of the risks that our buildings are exposed to are primarily, we've found through the Fire Smart program, in landscaping and the design impacts. So City Hall's a really good opportunity. Western Financial Place is a good opportunity. We haven't worked through that part yet, but we're committed to working through that if the budget's available next year.
Excellent. Councillor Doucette.
Are you looking at working with the RDK on this? Because certainly they have a big Fire Smart program, and I would think it would be applicable to them too, working together.
Yeah, so Michelle Shortridge, who's sitting behind me today, is kind of leading the Fire Smart program in the city on my behalf. And she is working with the regional district to try and find ways of joining them, combining our services together. I really fundamentally don't believe that we should have different Fire Smart programs and people than they do. And we're trying to find a way to combine the grant monies that are available for that type of work into the program being delivered across the community, be it Area C, City of Cranbrook. It's all in our fire protection area. We want it to look the same and be the same. This particular project is us taking ownership of landscaping Fire Smart wise and doing it as a demonstration to kind of start that public push in 2026. That's what this initiative is.
Thank you. And Councillor Stensky.
Yeah, thank you. So I asked this with some trepidation, but I back onto the community forest.
Yes.
Councillor Peabody backs onto the green space immediately adjacent to the community forest. Would these not be good demonstration sites? I'm just wondering why we're spending $50,000 potentially to pick a site and do some work.
So this is very different type of work than those areas. The forested areas are different than the facilities and assets in buildings. So the built environment is like City Hall currently has some not Fire Smart landscaping around it. And if we were to make those changes, we need to put some thought into how we're going to do that, and then put some money towards changing the shrubbery, the mulch that's around the shrubbery, some of the exterior siding and things like that. Those are the changes that we need to see in our community, the homeowners that we're trying to encourage them to do, and we feel like we need to set the example before we ask them to do it.
Thank you.
That's what the request is for. The landscape treatment of the community forest and the green spaces, those are different projects, and you'll find them under like landscape treatment, the $200,000 project above this one.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just to follow up on this topic, I attended a session at UBCM about fire smarting, and one of the items they touched on was the importance of securing municipal assets using fire smart strategies.
Yeah.
Because if a fire comes through, you want to do your best to make sure you've maintained your municipal assets so that the community can continue to function.
Our obligations under the emergency management program for business continuity include City Hall being functioning through a fire and after, Western Financial Place being operating through and after a fire, because we use it as a reception center for community. Very important for us to do this work. We're looking at which one we're going to pick, and then we'll use it as an advertising campaign to go forward. The last one on 2026 is $11,000 auxiliary turnout gear, and you're going to see that one over a number of years as well. We're trying not to buy all of our gear in one year. There is a regulatory imposition looming into the future about PFAS-free turnout gear for firefighters, because there's a chemical in there that causes health concerns pretty significantly when exposed to heat. And so what we're doing right now is we're making that transition as painless as possible with respect to taxpayer dollars, replacing with PFAS-free gear at end of life with the gear that we currently have, knowing that there is something looming that we can't predict when it's going to come. So you'll see the turnout gear one repeatedly over the years. That's just regular end of life replacement, knowing that we're going to see something into the future. 27, Richard? So if we skip over fleet and things under 20,000 that I've already spoken to, as we go back to the mitigation grant for 200,000, that's grant dependent again, and then the turnout gear is there in 27. 28. I don't really have anything here. Fire station satellite design is a conceptual placeholder. What I will say to that is $200,000 is probably light for a design on a fire station that's going to be in the tens of millions. 2028 is sort of just us keeping it on the radar, knowing that it needs to be 2 years ahead of the build, and the build is in there in 2030. So that's how we're doing that. I'm not telling you we're going to rebuild in 2030 or that we need to do the design in 2028. But what I will say is that as development goes up and increases in density, this is coming faster at the city. 29. There isn't really anything on here unless somebody wants to ask a question on 29. And 30, there's a $10 million fire hall, which I would say is definitely light on cost if that's where we're going.
Question, Councillor Steskey.
Yes.
When do you anticipate the next replacement of a fire truck coming? Because I see it's not in the next 5 years.
Correct. So we went through the painful years a few years ago where we did an aerial, a tender, and there is an engine that's coming currently. We just received some updates from the manufacturers that it should be here just around the end of the year. And so that's good news that we're going to replace our 21-year-old engine. The next one, I believe, probably in 5 more years. 4 or 5 more years is when we'll need it on the floor, and so it'll be coming to council just after that. Or that's probably when you'll see it in 4 years.
Thank you, Councillor Graham.
Thank you. Just in regards to the potential of a fire hall, what drives that need? Is it growth or location? What would be the trigger for that?
So there's no firm trigger in deciding when the community wants to replace and move the fire hall. What I will say is that as the call volume moves geographically across the city, so if we see more density and we see more risk, because we need to have a thorough conversation about when the fire hall will come. So there is no one single deciding factor on when a fire hall needs to come. That's a conversation that council and staff need to have and the community needs to have due to the size of it.
Is there an option to have fire halls, Charlotte, as a DCC project? I believe, didn't something change around that?
Councillor Graham, I believe the change was in the old gas tax, that the fire halls can be funded from there. I'm just going to take a look at Mike. Yeah, we'll take a look.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Since we're looking far ahead into the future, I think I just saw a project from somewhere in the Okanagan about a new facility, but I believe it was a multi-use facility. So I think fire hall, maybe some other law enforcement, et cetera. So that's a ways out. But if we're looking at design, are we talking about a multi-use facility that might involve other departments or agencies?
Yeah, so CAO Fercho and myself have had a number of discussions about partnering with the regional district for EOC site. There's a really good synergy there with the Emergency Operations Center being partnered with. There's commercial and residential opportunities to also combine in locations to make the real estate purchases a little bit more appealing and useful to the community. And we're seeing that more and more regularly across the province, where the Victoria Fire Station has some specialized housing for 4 stories above the fire hall in downtown Victoria on their new building. And so it significantly increases the scope and scale of the project and some of the management challenges that come with multiple owners in a large site. But the communities are quite a bit more accepting when we look at those things. So we are looking at them here and trying to figure out which one fits for us. There's limited real estate opportunities where we need to be, though.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Director Matika. So on the ministry's website, it does say that DCCs can be incorporated for fire protection and for policing.
Thank you. Further questions for? Awesome. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Chief Driver. And now I will ask Director Thors and his trusty side person to present the Recreation and Culture section for Council.
Afternoon, Council. So just wanted to start off by saying recently in our operational world, we've changed the way that facilities are managed. So you've seen that Public Works looks after all the facilities now, including Rec and Culture, whereas previously Rec and Culture looked after their own facilities. So Steve Bell sitting beside me is our new facilities manager. And along with our asset management program, you'll see a transition to a lot of the facility capital asks will be coming from one department as we collaborate together to get there. But for this year, it will be a little confusing when you'll see some recreation stuff in Public Works and some recreation stuff, facility stuff in Recreation and Culture. But starting off in 2026, we've got the Memorial Arena lights replacement. So this is just an ongoing project of updating and upgrading our facilities to more efficient LED style lights. The Kinsman Arena metal cladding. So as Director Haytu mentioned, we talked about a committee of the whole, assessing all of our projects, looking at hiring a construction manager to help facilitate projects as a whole. So this one being the Kinsman Arena metal cladding, as well as the roofing for the Boys and Girls Club. So it's all one facility. We might as well turn that into one project and you know, pool our resources and try and get a better dollar and a better project all in all. So that the metal cladding at the Kinsman will become part of that bigger picture project management service that Director Haytu is working on. The Kinsman Arena, repairing the concrete floor in the ice resurfacer bay. So this summer we noticed the concrete, so the Zambonis as we call them, they have studded tires on all year round. They absolutely destroy the concrete surface they ride on. So we park in the Zamboni Bay, the resurfacer bay, and that concrete is actually so pitted and so worn out that it's cracked and sunk. So we've done a mitigation repair that's safe enough for one season, but that whole bay will have to have the concrete removed, restructured, repoured, and finished again. Moving on to West Financial Place Complex, the aquatic tile work, change rooms, pool and deck. That was a project that was moved to 2026 to coincide with our aquatic columns repairs that we were doing. And now we have surge tank repairs that need to be done. And we also have HVAC 1, which is our pool HVAC system, all happening throughout the projects at different time intervals. When we close the pool to do any one of these projects, it's an incremental amount of time. So it's in our best interest to close the pool for 1 or 2 months, depending on the time frame, and do all these projects at once instead of every year closing for a month, getting that project done, closing for another month, getting that project done. So that is another one where hopefully we get this project manager involved and we can start using our asset management and our facility review that just got completed to figure out what is our best course of action. Right now, the pool is safe. It just needs a facelift per se. Western Financial Place, the condenser replacement. So that was scheduled for this year. With the unforeseen amount of tariffs involved, it was more cost effective to do some life-saving repairs to the condenser plant. So we spent about $15,000 extending the life for 1 year, where the estimated tariff was around $75,000. So hopefully next year, the price increase and the tariffs disappear and offset by that $15,000 to make it a more cost-effective repair. The one thing with the condenser replacement is the facility has to be shut down. So we can't have ice and we can't have air conditioning in that building. So it's very time sensitive when that repair can happen. Otherwise, the entire building needs to be closed for that entire time. Rec 21 WFE elevator upgrade. So if council remembers, we've amalgamated 2 or 3 projects into one here. So both the elevators at Western Financial Place are now 25 years old. And it's not only a cosmetic upgrade, but it's a mechanical upgrade to all the parts and pieces to ensure that it's safe and continues operating for another 20 to 25 years. The replacement of the IFAS wall. So in 2025, this year, we had slated to do a study and move into 2026 with the replacement of the IFAS system. What staff felt was better with the amount of borrowing that the city is coming up to is stretching this further down. So we're getting a study done to see if there's any detrimental effects to the facility by not replacing the siding for another period of time, 4 or 5 years. That's going to happen when Director Haytu can get this construction consultant on board and take a look at this. But pending that study, it'll determine if the siding can be pushed out. I mean, if anybody's seen the walls, we repair the flicker holes every year, and it's a astronomical process that never seems to catch up. The aquatic pump room hoist system. So the working mechanical rooms of the pool is actually 3 floors. And we have HVAC parts and plumbing parts and pipes and pumps that reside on all 3 floors. And moving them between the floors right now is a set of stairs. Very difficult to move, 300-400 pound pumps without a proper hoist system. So staff have made it work, but moving forward into this risk assessment and mitigation world we live in now, it's better to have a proper hoist system put in place. Pool pump replacements. So we have that based over the next 3 years. Our main pool pumps are 25 years old. We repair them and replace them as necessary and needed. We haven't replaced them, we replace parts. When we do lose a part or a pump, as council may have seen in the past, the pool is down for months or a month. Having spares and having reliable parts are going to keep the operations afloat. Same with the pool butterfly valve replacements. The Western Financial Place plant room pumps. Those are items that were noticed in our last facilities assessment as end of life or beyond end of life and critical parts that would shut our building down or shut our operations down. Western Financial Place boiler number 2 replacement. So as council may remember, we did an emergency replacement on number 1. And now for hopefully what would be a fraction of the cost to do a scheduled replacement, we would keep our operations and keep the facility safe and then usable for everybody. Curling arena, the roof. So we had an assessment done in 2023 that gave us 3 more years of life cycle with an updated costing of $700,000. Well, 2026 is that 3-year term, and that was the cost based on a 2026 replacement. So we're still confident that that would be the cost to replace the roof. And of course, we would bring in experts to do proper assessments and make sure that it is entirely needing a full replacement or what's best for the asset. And moving on to 2027. The first project you see there.
1 second, Trevor. Councilor Ray.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor. I was just wondering, when we're looking at tiles for the deck at the pool, I've certainly seen mostly little kids do really good slips and falls on the tiles. Something about the surface area, their little feet and a little bit of water. Are there any modern, cost-effective options for pool deck or for the deck, or do tiles remain the best option?
Acting Mayor Popoff through to Councilor Ray. So it's a great question. When staff originally started down this path, we did look into epoxy type surfaces and seamless surfaces. I think there's benefits to both. And once we get to this portion with our construction manager and the staff can make a valid decision on what's best for our community. So I think we have tile written in there because this is an older project, but I do believe that there are seamless and roll-on applications that may be better nowadays that will work in conjunction with development services and public works with. Memorial Arena ventilation fan refurbish. It's just a life cycle getting fresh air in and out of the Memorial Arena. West Financial Place dehumidification system. So West Financial Place does not currently have a dehumidification system in there. If you had the chance to see our hockey rink in August this year, it was very foggy. There was raindrops on the glass. It just made it difficult if we had the controlled environment of the doors being shut all day, it'd be fine. But every time people come in and out of that building, especially that time of year, the humidity is really high. Replacement of the hot tub sand filters in the pool, sand filters, pardon me. And it's just life cycle replacement. We do maintenance on them every year and replace parts as necessary. They're all plastic in a caustic environment. The pool pump replacements, that's year 2 of a 3-year plan to refurbish and build and buy new pump parts. The curling rink, the curling arena main floor carpets. Old and need replacement.
I thought they were done. We did some replacements on those last year. Or maybe they were cleaned and then there was some replacement on the ice.
Councillor Passett to Acting Mayor Popoff. That was just on the header trench where you enter onto the ice sheets. That was due to some hazardous materials removal at the time. We replaced that one carpet, but the carpet that we're speaking of is the main floor carpet as you walk in. Call it change room area where everybody puts their shoes on.
Next item on there is part of the fleet plan, which is the ice resurfacer. And then some projects under 20,000. There were some projects moved further out, and these are 3 of our DCC projects as well. The Idlewild Park Outdoor Fitness and Obstacle Course, which I know Councillor Ray questioned earlier, the Pop Price Park, and Baker Park.
Question, Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just in regards to like Southview Park, I know in the past, the city's required residents in the area to contribute financially to playground equipment. Are we still doing that? And is that something that's going to happen with this project? Like, I think in the past, it was like, we wanted residents to cover 50% of the playground equipment. I don't know if it was in our bylaw or if this is just an unwritten rule.
I see a lot of looking faces.
Yeah.
Councillor Peabody through Acting Mayor Popoff. It's not in a bylaw or anything, and it happened up in Mount Royal, I understand. And it has been something we talk about a lot, but it's not written down in a policy. It's not required, and I don't think it's happened since the Mount Royal project.
CAO.
So Acting Mayor Popoff, sorry, in terms of us looking, there's probably been different practices. I can just tell you, like, from working in different municipalities, sort of a general practice is that there are funds set aside either through, like now with DCCs or with the development of parkland through the community, through parks master planning, where parks will go with playgrounds under a capital program. However, from time to time, residents in a certain neighborhood will request a playground that doesn't necessarily meet a high priority need. Say there's a school playground nearby, or there's other areas with higher priorities. So a lot of times councils then will ask for a donation from the neighborhood in order to offset the taxpayer costs. So I've seen that done in other communities. I haven't been in Cranbrook long enough. I've only been here 5 years to see the history here, but that might be the reason why some places are asking for a 50% contribution and others are not.
Okay, so just supplemental if I may. So just a thought. Could the residents in the area contribute funds to create like a better playground than what might be proposed or what's budgeted for?
I guess, any time that, so I've seen it done in a number of communities where residents will do everything up to provide labor, like, which takes a lot of work to coordinate to help install playground equipment. No lie there, sometimes it's not a great savings, but contributions towards making it better, or even, like I say, where they're not in the parks master plan, where they want it, a 50% contribution. So it can have any different model. And I can't speak to Cranbrook because 5 years isn't long enough to get a history, but certainly any of these are options.
And that I guess I would also build pride and ownership for the neighborhood of the park.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Maybe CAO Furcho can comment on this. I believe we've had some interest over the last couple of years from residents up in Southview about this park, conveying that they were interested in being involved in supporting the development of this park.
Again, sorry, Councillor, through the Acting Mayor, I believe so, but I don't have the history on the tip of my tongue here.
And just another question, if I may. Trevor, regarding the replacement of the ice resurfacer, are we able to compare costs for an electric Zamboni versus standard internal combustion Zamboni?
Acting Mayor Popoff, through to Councillor Ray. Yeah, we did that on our last purchase, which happened just as I got to town. So the life cycle of a internal combustion is a little bit longer in the long run than a battery powered, but technology does change. So I do believe that every time we do a replacement, that's where you weigh the pros and cons of both sides.
Thank you. And I don't know if there's any grant funding for those. I saw somewhere recently they were celebrating getting an electric Zamboni. So anyways, we'll see if that's a possibility. And I will continue to say that I would like to have on our Zambonis a passenger seat like the trail smoke eaters have, so people can ride on the Zamboni, and it's a whole thing. It probably involves some additional insurance.
Great comment, Councillor Ray. Councillor Steskis.
Thank you. So Idlewild Park Outdoor Fitness Park obstacle course, I guess we'll come back to that, but I thought we had voted 2 years ago to remove it completely at the time. So just surprised to see it back on the list.
Maybe we can just, yeah, check the records on that and get back to us on that, because I do have that recollection as well, I think, as most of council.
Excellent. Moving on to 2028. So the first item on that list is a Moyer Park Ball Diamonds lighting and bleachers, which is set at $800,000, which was a conservative estimate from about 3 years ago. As you can see, it is slated for 100% grant funding. Directly underneath that is Pop Price Park, which is another DCC project. And then Moyer Park Ball Field expansion, which is $100,000, which is ideally you're looking at, staff are looking at presenting to council, building more ball diamonds at Moyer Park, with the ability to look at the Kinsman Quad area and land for additional uses, as the city is seemingly starting to outgrow them. The youth do have a lot of fun there, though. Moving into West Financial Place, we've got the lower arena sports flooring. This was pushed out. It was on the books when I got here 4 years ago. It's getting to the point where that flooring does need to be replaced. West Financial Place washroom fixtures update and replacement, going to hands-free. A lot more modern of a facility, safer for everybody. West Financial Place HVAC #1 replacement. So this is the main HVAC in the aquatic center. We've had multiple repairs, replacements, sandblasting, painting, epoxying. Every year the louvers have to be replaced. It's 25 years old and sits in a very caustic environment. So that ideally would turn into that big aquatic refurb project where we're painting the walls, redoing the floors, redoing the HVAC, all that stuff at the same time, and turning it into in essence, a brand new aquatic center. And 2028 is the last year scheduled for pool pump replacement. I'm sure as we delve into our asset management, you'll see a lot more of these things pop up over the years.
And question, Councillor Bissett?
Thank you. Just because it's sort of related, I just wanted to comment on how much nicer the washrooms in Western Financial Place are, since I believe it's related to the security or the change in the operations there. It's been commented on by multiple people that use the studio, and it's quite an improvement. So just thought I'd let you know.
Excellent, thank you. And 2029, so we'll see the Idlewild Park Outdoor Fitness has been moved out to 2029 with a DCC project, so we can definitely discuss that in November. And the Moyer Ballpark field expansion. So the previous one was the study. This would be the actual work to be done, if that's the direction council wishes to go. Memorial Arena, we've got the roof replacement, the condenser replacement, the dressing room flooring, bleacher replacement, and the east side slab and bleacher replacement. So during our shutdown last year, we had a chance to do a great assessment of the facility, and these are a lot of the outcomes from that. West Financial Place, the carpet in the restaurant, by this year it'll be almost 30 years old, in dire need. The aquatic center filter room refurbish, pardon me. Everything in there is plastic and metal piping, and it's a very caustic environment. So typically when we go to replace parts and you wrench on a pipe, the pipe just breaks. So it's tracing that issue backwards to finding the next joint that's not brittle. Heated chemical storage for the aquatic center. So currently we store all of our acid and chlorine inside the filter room, I guess you call it. We have an outdoor compound, but these items can't freeze. So in that outdoor compound, a heated shed would be ideal to store all of our chemicals that are stored inside the facility. The Western Financial Place condenser expansion tank, life cycle assessment and repair. So that's in the main refrigeration plant room. West Financial Place parking lot lighting, be a life cycle upgrade there. Moving on to the curling rink, the arena exterior painting. This has been a project that's been pushed out. I believe it was 2 years ago, the curling club executive took it upon themselves to paint the outside of the facility themselves. And then the curling arena lighting, which would be an LED upgrade as well. Any questions on 29? And 2030. We start off with Baker Park. This was moved out from 27. It's a DCC project. And Memorial and Kinsman Arena. So the Kinsman Arena arched roof repairs. Do you have any idea? The Memorial Arena east side slab and bleacher replacement, and the Kinsman Arena repaving the parking lot. And then looking to the fleet plan.
Okay, well, you'll reserve this question till the end, Trevor. Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to mention that on the fleet plan is another ice resurfacer. So those will all be assessed as needed, and internal combustion versus electric, and both brands, Olympia and Zamboni, everything will be researched.
Questions, Council?
Yep, thank you. I think it's really important, and maybe we're already doing this, but we need to make sure that we're consulting closely with the school division in terms of the number of kids that are entering the system before we expand any of our recreational facilities, because I'd heard that there were far fewer children entering kindergarten and grade 1 than there were students leaving grade 12. So I think we really need to be careful in terms of expanding facilities, and we need to be in close discussion with the school board about the number of children that are coming through the system going forward.
Question, Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So looking at 2030 to the Kinsman Arena arched roof repairs, because we have some recent very memorable experience with arenas and roof repairs. Just want to make sure that we're feeling confident with the state of the roof for Kinsman Arena, and that 2030 is a reasonable target. We don't want to be caught short on this, because that was not fun. And I know I really appreciate all the work we're doing to improve our asset management, to improve our preventative maintenance, but I just want to ask the question.
Acting Mayor Popoff, through to Councillor Ray. I mean, what we're presenting today is what we know needs to be done in the next 5 years. Once Director Heytu gets this consultant on board, they can actually help us from a professional's point of view, what order we should be doing these in, what's more of a priority, and what's what can sit back and with that mindset of, you know, we only have a limited amount of money, where's the best use of it on our facilities. So I think this is great that staff have identified these items. I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing them move in different orders and new items appear as this process moves forward.
Further questions for Trevor? Okay, Charlotte, we're at that time of 3 o'clock. We're only half an hour behind. Shall we, is it the wish of council, we take a break now at 3 o'clock? Yes, let's do that. Convene back in about 20 minutes or so. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Peabody has arrived. Charlotte, how we doing? Can you guarantee we're going to be out of here by 5 o'clock?
I can guarantee.
Guaranteed. Here we go. Please proceed.
Okay, so up next will be Corporate Services and IT, Tina and Leon.
Okay, I'll start out and I'll do the first 2 points here. The first one is the childcare facility construction. So that's the recent grant that we have just received to design and construct a new daycare here in Cranbrook at Western Financial Place. And that will create 123 new spaces. This funding is 100% grant funded. And I'll just jump ahead a little bit and just, make a note that in 2028, there is another line item there. And that's just reflecting when the province gives us our payments. And that is expected to be when the project will be completed. And for the records management project, so this is $50,000, and we have a temporary full-time record staff member that's been helping us do backfile scan and uploading into our records management system. And so this is to extend that position for another 6 months. We've had significant accomplishments over the last couple of years, but even in this last year, cleaning up paper records and doing this scanning project. So going back to bylaws, back to square one, council meetings and agenda packages, going back to day one. I can, on the November meeting, I'll provide some stats of the actual numbers of what we've accomplished. But overall, this project has improved compliance with the LGMA standards. It's enhanced our digital accessibility and searchability of records. It's starting to mitigate legal and operational risks associated with poor record management. And so the ask is for an additional 6 months just to maintain the momentum and complete the capture of some of the critical vital records that we want to get digitized.
Questions for Tina? Councillor Green.
Thank you. As we're digitizing and as it's wrapping up the project, which is nice to hear, is that all searchable from the public end or only searchable on the internal end?
It's just the internal.
Will it ever be available on the public end when it comes to council meetings, bylaws, old annual reports, that kind of thing?
The council meetings and bylaws are already searchable by the public. They can do it through the iCompass system, so that's already there.
Okay.
Further questions for Tina? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do the next one.
Yes, please.
Yep. Excuse me. Next up is the city lands analysis. And what this is a comparative lands analysis of similar communities to identify best practices for land acquisition and disposition. The plan is to include a review of, it'll be similar to the development fees, the parking review, the cemetery review, the rec and culture review. And the project will aim to review comparable communities, their disposition methods, formulas, and rates. It will also cover off current city lands, buildings, leases, licenses of occupation. We're looking for development of a strategy for disposition of lands to various entities like nonprofits, for-profit land sales, or private land sales. We are also looking to include a strategy to address inconsistencies with renewals of current agreement moving forward. And it will also include an analysis of the existing lands acquisition and disposition policy and recommendations for leases and licenses of occupation and land rates moving forward.
Questions for Marnie? Oh, okay. CIO?
All right, so on to the next item. So there's been one change. It's an edit, so it's not showing up on the screen, but it is in the edited material. So we do have under the it's the social development coordinator position. So we presented at the regional district. So we're hopeful that through that process at the regional district, we'll be able to secure 80,000 a year again for the next 3 years. Similar to the amount we had secured prior was 85,000. We dropped it down, so it's 80,000 per year was the request we made to the RD, and that was noted during the meeting. It really is a regional homelessness initiative because it is the small communities around Cranbrook are largely where the homeless population that arrives in Cranbrook is from. It's people that lived in Cranbrook or have lived in Cranbrook and arriving from the smaller towns versus coming in from any other area. So the contribution from the regional district, member municipalities to the city to help us deal with this is very important. We were also successful in securing a very large $1.5 million grant from Health Canada, and that was thanks to the collaboration of all of the member organizations under the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness. So now that that grant has been secured, it's another line item here. I'll speak to that in a second, but there was also money available in the grant that we've put towards this position, so $37,477. So we're still looking to the city for $30,000 annual contribution for 3 years under the Special Projects Reserve for that position to carry on with the work around the homelessness initiative, the social development coordinator position of the city. So that's how that's laid out, and hopefully you guys have the edited material there in front of you to see that. And then we have both in 2026 and 2027 the Health Canada Homelessness Project grant. So that's money from the federal government through the Mayor's Task Force. The city is simply acting as a flow through. So we hold the grant money and then we disperse it as per how the grant was set up between the application and approved by Health Canada. So there's really no approvals of the individual projects by the city per se. The member organizations, mostly notably the Interior Health, are the beneficiaries of the funding that will flow through. Upon conclusion of that work, some of the assets will then become property of, like, say, Interior Health for the drug treatment ban, for example. So it's really, we're just acting as a flow through, but the money does show on our books. But it was, as I said, I just want to make note that the collaboration of all of the organizations, including the city, but notably all of the member organizations of the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness, was the reason $1.5 million came from the federal government to the East Coonies and specifically Cranbrook to help the homeless population and actually take some of the pressure off our first responders by being in front of a number of the problems. So that's all for that one.
Excellent. Good work of staff. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you. For a future meeting, CEO Furcho, could you bring us an update as we head into winter in terms of what the relationship now is between the travel lodge, the homeless shelter, the Moyer Park campground, churches that might still be looking to be cold weather sites, just so we have the lay of the land?
Certainly we can do that. I'll ask Marcel to do that, and just so council's aware, and just so you do have a little heads up, the emergency cold weather shelter funding is still available, but some of the other funding that we were able to access last year is not going to be made available for supports for the cold weather. And what that did last year was allowed some support to happen, say, to the homeless population that was in Moyer and outlying areas to stay warm with heating options and options outside of the core area. So without that funding and those supports available, and Marcel will be able to speak to it in more detail, one of the concerns is we will see more of the visible homeless population move into the core of the town to find warmth when those are not available. But once it gets to be extreme cold weather sheltering through the BC Housing, there is some funding available. So we are working with some of the churches for some of that support, but there is a gap coming. So we're going to look at maybe some more advocacy through council, and I'll try to get that update done we'll target if Marcel's around the November 3rd meeting, because we have an issue. We're looking at some things that might help. But in the absence of any of that, we can expect more of the sort of visible homeless issue to be in the core of the city that we haven't had in the past few years because we've been successful in helping maintain them outside of the core. So that is a concern going forward.
Okay, Leon, you're up.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'll try and speak to the general, just overview of what our approach for the next 5-year budget cycle. So we are continuing to focus on reducing complexity by consolidating our infrastructure. That's coming up for replacement. So in the budget and what we have on, Richard, I don't know if you can, what we have on the slides there, you notice that a few of our projects have been combined, resulting into reduced overall costs. The reductions will not affect the integrity of our projects. For example, building our storage needs into our server infrastructure ensures the reduction in hardware procurement costs. We have also entered into enterprise agreements that have allowed us to reduce hardware and software costs. I would like to highlight a couple bigger projects there. On this page, you've got ITE 0044. So this project is in conjunction with their Western Financial place. We're looking to replace the public address system to increase public safety and providing reliable communication tools in emergency situations. Excuse me, we're also looking to simplify our residents' access to our online resources with the introduction of the customer relationship management system, and this is highlighted on 2027. That's the project ITE 0043. This system will replace our 3-on-1 app, enhance overall communication for the corporation, and bring together applications with distinct functions under one interface accessible through a citizen's portal. Thank you.
Questions for Leon? We're good.
Thank you.
All right, the final section is the finance section, also very small. In 2027, we're considering a financial statement development software. It's an add-on to our existing budget software, and it would assist with financial statement preparation, currently done through an Excel spreadsheet and Word documents. Highly subject to error and not integrated with our any of our accounting systems. So it's hard coding. I mean, you can upload into Excel, but it's generally hard coding and manual manipulation. And as I said, highly subject to error. So that is, we've had it in the budget for a few years and just keep moving it out because UKG consumed a lot of our bandwidth over the last few years. So this was not something we were able to take on. And then in 2029, a new mailing machine for $10,000. That's it.
Any questions for finance? Okay.
Yep.
I'm looking at the clock. It's looking good.
All right. So that concludes the material for today. We will reconvene on the 19th of November, where, as I mentioned at the beginning, at the top of this meeting, staff will provide council with their information on their operating budgets, as well as the review of the 2026 capital and other projects that we will be requiring council's decision on. Yeah, and then we have another meeting on the 26th of November, which is, I expect also will be quite short. We do have, sometimes what happens is we end up adding things that have come up throughout the budget discussions with council. We end up bringing back additional information at a subsequent meeting. So those future meetings are a good sort of placeholder for anything that might come up in our discussions with council. And then another meeting on December 10th to review where we're at. And then in January, we move into basically combining our budget meetings with the regular council meetings. We don't yet have information for you on the tax increase. We are working very hard behind the scenes to look for ways to get that down. For reference, we have started this budget season with a 7.97% increase. That's what was in the 5-year financial plan that was adopted most recently back in February. So as council also knows, additional information comes along through after we adopt the budget that that changes that number. So we are, as I say, working furiously behind the scenes, looking for ways to bring that down. And when we have some more solid information, we will be coming back to council and reviewing the work we've done and where we see some opportunities for further adjustments possibly. And that's all I have on the 27th. Yep, okay. And again, reminding council of the committee of the whole on October 27th, where for certain Director Hitu's discussion around facilities will be present, and possibly some other larger project descriptions may work their way into that meeting as well.
Councillor Setsky.
Thank you. So one of the questions I do get asked occasionally is when will people know the tax rate for next year? So I know there's a legal date requirement, and then there's a Charlotte desirable date. So just looking ahead a bit, what are those dates tentatively?
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky, through Acting Mayor Popoff. So the legislative date is May 15th. And that's when the tax rates have to be set. The 5-year financial plan has to be adopted before the tax rates are adopted. And of course, we couldn't set the tax rates until the 5-year financial plan is developed. So the 5-year financial plan, the target is sometime in February. But we'll see where we get to in terms of the budget, because I imagine that there'll be plenty of discussion that will be needed. And so the critical piece is the May 15th, before May 15th. Yeah.
Thank you. So Charlotte, I was looking in our agenda package, there was a whole list of items in 7.2, and then later under carry forward projects, a number of items. Those were not going to be discussed? I'm okay, but just, that's why I was pushing through the clock here. I'm looking, we've got all these other items in 7.2 and beyond, so.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Popoff. I can see I need to add a little section to my opening remarks. Those are your links to the documents that have been used by each of the departments. So they're not in addition to, they are the documents that provide the detail for today's discussion. So it's not extra.
Excellent. So council, is there any burning issues, questions that have come up in the last, for this whole session that you haven't yet had a chance to ask to any of our staff? Here's your chance for the day. Any burning questions? Councillor Peabody.
I like that you keep us in suspense about what the tax rate is. So we don't come to the meeting just angry. So we appreciate that.
Appreciate that, Councillor Peabody. So one thing I will just say, so it's the tax rate is not typically that number that we focus on. It's the tax levy increase. So, whether the number is 30 million or 40 million, that's the tax levy. How much higher is that than the prior year? That's the number we always talk about. So that's the tax levy increase. And the tax rates, they move up and down depending on assessed values. And so that's the bylaw we pass for, the rates for residential, business, light industry. So I appreciate that. I live in this world and it's, I talk the talk every day. But just so the tax rate is what we charge per thousand on a piece of property. And increase is that number, the percent increase over the prior year. And that was at, like I said, 26 was 7.97. But I will just keep, any new number a little close to my vest, close to my heart right now, or under my vest, yeah.
Other questions, council? Well, firstly, thanks, Charlotte, and thanks all the staff for putting all the effort and work into the presentation today. A few of us this is our 11th budget for a few of us, and it's come a long way since we first sat around the table here. So congratulations for all that. I think it's a great starting point, and I look forward to further discussions going forward as we drill down into the details and the numbers. Around the table, is there any reports from council that you'd like to offer up? And I'll start with Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Peabody, Councillor Brissette.
Just a heads up, there was a letter that came in, or an email about the cemetery and its need for more maintenance. We get these every year and we bring them up every year. So just if we could get a report back on what's happening with that. We did approve a bylaw on increasing the fees, and just something on cemetery maintenance would be appreciated.
And just Councillor Papa, or Acting Mayor Popoff, through the council, said that. So we've had quite a bit of discussion internally on that. So we can update you through the budget process here as well.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
Well, could we update it at the regular meeting so that's out to more of the public?
Certainly, so I think we target November 3rd then for that one.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep everything off the 20th agenda.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Nothing to report. Councillor Graham. Okay, I have nothing to report either. So that brings us to the end of today's meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Peabody, Councillor Brissette, all in favor? Meeting adjourned. That's carried. Thank you. Oh, I get to bang the gavel.